Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old Union has come in here to dwell.
The largest union talk radio program in the South. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. You can leave us a voicemail at any time throughout the week. That phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can also leave us a written note at any time throughout the week, and we might respond to it on the next program. We got somebody in the chat saying that they just finished my night shift just in time. Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll be able to get some rest here soon. I just came back from Kegs and Eggs downtown Huntsville. I don't know if anybody listening was there, but had a good time. Obviously did not partake too much so that I could still do the show, but I had a good time. And next year, I enjoyed it so much that next year I might just take the day off and spend the morning there. Yeah, so we have on the line Andrea Alvarez. Really excited for this conversation. She is a member of the Huntsville City School Board. Andrea, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Really excited to talk to you. You have been in office now for about 4 years. I don't think you're running for re-election, and so just to start off, before we talk about anything specific, I'm curious about kind of general takeaways from having been in office at the school board for 4 years now, and what are some of your main takeaways from your time in office?
That's actually a big bite to accomplish this morning so early. But no, I guess the main thing that I take away is that it's a lot heavier than I thought it would be. Mm-hmm. So it does take a toll on you when you're this close, when you're a local rep and you're seeing the actual faces every day. It does make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're seeing what you impact, you're seeing what you fail, you're seeing it daily. So it's heavy.
So moving into some of the more specific stuff, I mean, school choice has been something that we've been trying to track pretty closely. Just from a good public policy perspective, Adam has a kid in public schools in Alabama, and I'm a product of Alabama's public schools, the county schools in Madison, and it just seems so bad. But I'm curious from the Huntsville City School Board perspective, what has been the impact on the Choose Act, and what are you anticipating if it goes universal, as some people are wanting to try to do this session?
So the impact is the unknowns. So, when Governor Ivey, who used to be an educator, submits a budget to the legislature and says, this is what my priorities are, and then they slash it, And part of that slashing is to pay for the Choose Act. I mean, you have to understand that it does impact us. What we need to do is stop that from happening. We're creating a class system. We're acting like parents know best, which maybe they do, but how do we know? Because there's no way to test accountability. There's no transparency. That's tax dollar money that goes to a single child, their actual name, where the rest of us have to have a bucket of money that we take everybody's needs and prioritize. So it's like we either need to give $7,000 to every single student, and then on top of that, provide the needs of the kids that need more, or we need to not fund private schools. So it's just that we just are throwing money away, but also not doing it fairly to parents like me. Like, why do my kids have to take standardized tests to prove that taxpayer money is getting used right? But a private school parent doesn't have to do that. So it's like we only trust parents when it's not public school. Like, that makes zero sense.
The lack of transparency and accountability for private schools really is an underappreciated facet of school choice, I think, because the immediate assumption of kind of lay people, I think, which I think is wrong, is that private schools deliver a better product than public schools on the whole.
Right.
And, there are no doubt some private schools that do a really good job, but the dirty secret about these school choice bills are that the private schools that do a really good job are already full, and they're not going to take any or many more students as a result of these school choice bills. All that the school choice bills are going to do is subsidize the rich parents who are already sending their kids to these schools, and the people that are going to be pulled out of the public school system are not going to be going to those fancy smancy, really nice private schools. They're going to be going to Bubba's Bible School in a strip mall and learning about six-day creation and not knowing anything about science or mathematics, because there's no accountability. I mean, am I off base here?
No, you are 100% accurate. And if you ask any elementary school teacher in Huntsville City Schools, they will say that when a parent brings their child back from some of these schools, they're 1 to 2 years behind. And that might not be truly behind, but they're behind the state standards, which is what we are held to, which private schools are not. So when the state says you need to do X by 4th grade and private schools aren't doing that, it is our responsibility to make sure they're doing X by 4th grade. Right. And that's what people don't understand is we then have to remediate these kids, which takes extra resources, extra time, extra stress. And by the way, if they were in a Choose Act voucher the year before, we don't get funding for them the next year. So like if the kids are not in our school system this year and they come to us next year, there is zero funding for them. That $7,000 does not follow them back to our school for a whole nother year.
Wow.
And so that's what people don't understand is we are not funded the same way the Choose Act is funded. They get current year numbers and money. We get last year's numbers. And that's impactful. So every year is just a change in how many kids we have, where they go. Providence Elementary had a change in their average daily rate by 300 students. So from 1 year to the next, we had 300 kids with no funding.
Wow.
And we have to take that from our other schools. But private schools, like I said, the money follows the child. It's actually in their name. We don't get that.
Well, and when all of this was first starting, it was around, there was a big discussion about it during the gubernatorial election in 2022, and we had Tim James on the program to talk kind of generally, and we also talked about school choice. And I remember relaying to him some of the studies that have demonstrated that specifically that the average student who is pulled out of a public school as a result of these school choice vouchers end up performing more poorly on standardized tests than students who stayed in public schools, right? So that's a very specific thing. It's not saying people who have always been in private school are performing worse or whatever, but the people who ostensibly the whole thing is about protecting, right? It's about protecting the people in these quote unquote failing public schools and giving them a better alternative and pulling them out of the current system. The people who actually, the average person who actually leaves the current system does worse is the kind of general consensus. Yeah. And he did not believe it. He was like, well, I bet that's, teacher union propaganda. And, so it's, but when and I didn't even really fully get it until a couple of years later, because I didn't push back I've gone back and listened to that interview, and I didn't push back, I don't think, in an adequate way, because I didn't fully get it, because I also still kind of had the impression of, private schools are kind of fancy smancy, and so why wouldn't they get a better education in these fancy smancy private schools? But that's, the fancy ones aren't the ones that people get to go to generally, who are being pulled out of the public schools. They're going to these, kind of fly-by-night things. And there's been a huge scandal in Florida over the last year of, somebody in government who's been making, buku bucks on this and not delivering a good education.
Yes. And that's what we're going to see. And unfortunately, it's already happened. I mean, there was a school that stood up for special needs kids in Huntsville, and it was great. And the parents felt heard, and the program seemed like they were working, but then they just shut down and embezzled all the money. So just imagine when you start getting Choose Act money, how many pop-up schools are going to start happening to where that's just going to be rampant. And you can lie, you can do another name. I mean, you could just say, look how great this school is. I'm a annex of, Randolph, and no one's going to check you. And then next thing you know, they took all your money and ran. And then guess what? Those kids have to come back to public school. So it's disruptive. It's impactful to us. Like I said, we're not funded for it. It's just a nightmare. But what people really don't understand is that private school teachers do not have to be certified. So my argument is, why does the state of Alabama think that there's value in a teacher having a teaching degree and a teacher passing the praxis? Because it's an effective educator, but at a private school, they don't have to.
So when you talk to a lot of lawmakers about, by virtue of your position, you kind of have, like, that's part of your job is, administrator of Huntsville City Schools, but also kind of like a lobbyist, an advocate for Huntsville City Schools. And so you talk to these people. And so when you talk to these people and you try to lay out these problems, what do the pro school choice people say? Like, how do they respond?
So my favorite is Alabama Policy Institute, because they say the transparency and accountability is there because the parents know best. And I'm like, great, fine. Then I also know best for my kids at public school. But we don't look at it that way. And they will say, out of both sides of their mouth, they will say public schools need more transparency, more laws, more accountability, because for whatever reason, we're not trusting those parents. We're only trusting private, usually religious school parents. They clearly know best. And as someone in the school system, I will tell you, there are some really, really terrible parents. There is no doubt about that. And the last thing we need is to let them homeschool their kids. But if we're going to say parents know best, then you take that with the good and the bad. And we all need to say that we know best. And there should be zero education laws, and there should be zero education oversight. And we should all just build our own community schools. Which I'm not technically against, but that's not how we're set up right now.
Right. Yeah, it's all very concerning. I mean, I would very much be against that. I mean, I think the public school system has been a huge boon for this country, I think. And, there are obviously things that we can do to improve it. But the idea that we, just give $7,000 to Bubba's Bible School and have no accountability about what they're teaching their students and how effectively the students are learning it. It just does not make any sense to me, right? And the people that are pushing this are supposed to be the real smart, pencil pushing business people, value driven, peak performance. We want to make sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck. Every dollar that we put in, we got to get 14 out. And they're just like, well, we don't, if it's going to this little rinky dink religious school, then maybe we don't need that much. It really, I think, in my opinion, you don't have to co-sign this, but I think it really reveals that the driving push behind this is not about improving education. It's not about saving poor kids. It's about allowing indoctrination and and kind of de-educating the public.
It's also it's a grift. I mean, these people are paying for private school and then they don't have money to go to Disney. And so now they're going to get enough money to go to Disney. It's really that. It's the middle class trying to get it all. And the only way that they can get it all, because they don't want to work hard, is they want to get the grift from the government. Well, and that's what is frustrating to me.
Yeah, and I can imagine the frustration being in a board position, seeing this happening and how it's impacting local districts. To your point, Jacob, I think public education in this country has been one of the strongest safety nets we have left, because public schools are charged with accepting all students. Doesn't matter what you look like, where you come from, how much you know, what you don't know. As public schools, they take all, and that is their mission. And it is a relief for so many families. I mean, most educators, if you ask them if they're being honest, they recognize that a lot of what they're doing is babysitting so that parents can be at work. And that is a lot of what employers see the value as. But to your point, Jacob, it's really, really important for a democratic, thriving community that young people be educated, that they have critical thinking skills, that they are able to be responsible adults who can, think critically and make good decisions. That is really an imperative for all of us, for the social contract, right? Because we all have to live with each other. And I don't want to live in a society where less and less people are educated. That is scary. It's bad enough as it is. But I did want to switch gears because I know that you were in D.C. not too long ago talking to some of our folks up there who are supposed to represent us. And you were there really fighting for special education. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. What's going on with special education? Why were you in D.C. and how did that go?
Yeah. So what we are seeing now is there's a blurred line between the responsibilities for educating all students and what it takes to get them to the point where they can be educated. That's typically for special education. There's a lot of, we have to do a lot of preliminary work to get a child to the point where they are able to accept the content and learn to the best of their own capabilities. What we're seeing though are children that are so dysregulated that we find it to be more medically in the field of medicine to fix, to get them to the point where they can actually learn. We are not trained as mental health professionals to regulate a child enough to learn spelling words. That's where we are. And more laws are pushing this medical piece down to us to where we are hiring psychiatrists and we're hiring mental health professionals in our school. And so I'm going to DC and I'm saying, we've got to unblur these lines. If a child has a fever, they're not allowed at school. If a child breaks their leg, we are not responsible for casting it. But if a child is having a manic episode, suddenly that's our responsibility. And we need programs that help us do that, because right now there's none. We have children who are in psychiatric wards, get released at 7 a.m. and come back to kindergarten. And it's highly disruptive. The children are not well enough for school, and we've got to develop programs to where we can get them well enough to where they can rejoin the general education classroom. But just throwing this on a teacher, plus, what if this teacher's 22 and it's her first year? This is too hard. And we need to have legislators help us with that.
Yeah, I know from my experience in the classroom that so many of the challenges that I dealt with and really my students and their families were dealing with were issues that were not within my capacity to resolve. Right.
Yes.
I could not fix the fact that little Johnny's lights got cut off earlier in the week,
Right.
or that mama hasn't been home in days, and that the only hot meal they get is when they're at school. And
Yes.
that's so many of our families are struggling, and the public schools are like you said, kind of left to just resolve all of this.
Yes.
It's put on the shoulders of the public schools to try to fix poverty, to try to fix racism, to try to fix incarceration, drug epidemics, all the issues that are plaguing our communities. And, teachers alone can't do that. That's unreasonable. And I've always felt, inspired. I started teaching in 2012, which was the same year the Chicago Teachers Union went on their big strike for the school Chicago students deserved. And what really stood out to me was how the issues they were advocating for were good for kids. They were good for the families. It was providing these sorts of resources, recognizing that some of our kids are being left behind. And it's not our teachers' fault. It's not because the teachers aren't trying or the schools aren't trying. They're not given the resources and the programming needed and the professionals needed
Exactly.
to make that impact. And I was wondering if while we're kind of talking about the federal stuff, I know there's been a lot of developments that I haven't tracked as closely as I used to, but there has been some developments from the federal side of things. And, typically public education is a very localized issue. In Alabama, as we've already alluded to, the state legislature has a huge role to play, setting, the vast majority of the funding and the laws and regulations. But the federal government does play an impact. So I'm just curious, from your perspective on the board over the past year or so in this Trump administration, have you noticed any changes so far, or are there any changes that y'all anticipate?
Actually, I mean, not really. To be honest, the state definitely has more impact to us when they're making cuts or laws or decisions. The federal government has been pretty steady. And even if the Department of Education is disbanded, there may be issues with like civil rights, determinations or advocacy at that level. But when you're a school system like ours that is really, really on top of that stuff, we don't see any impacts. I mean, if there's one thing we understand, it's civil rights. We have that one down to a T. So we do our best to support our SPED population, to support our minority population, and to us, it's just another day of business. We haven't seen much change at all.
Okay, yeah, that's something I've been tracking because obviously there's been a lot of conversation about, the wife of Vince McMahon from WWE fame leading our Department of Education and attempts to abolish it. But you're right. Yeah, I think it is for a lot of districts, it's not something they're feeling yet. Obviously, when it comes to the Office of Civil Rights and protecting marginalized communities, that's a big concern in some districts for sure. And I guess the last thing I wanted to touch on, which I didn't share with you in advance, so feel free to dodge this one if you want to, but I have noticed that the right-wing media in Alabama seems to have a grudge against you. I have noticed some of our friends at 1819 News and the like, even Jacob's good buddy Dale Jackson, they seem to have an interest in your career. So I'm just wondering, like, what has that been like to get some of that targeting from the right? And what do you make of it?
So what cracks me up is, I'm the type of person, I'll say it and I own it and I'll get a megaphone and say it again. There's hardly ever a time that I've ever regretted something I said. So when they try to repost it like it's something bad, I just laugh. I mean, it actually brings me great joy because thank you for giving me more of an audience. This is what I say is true. I'm the one who is in this, seeing it, seeing the flaws, seeing the flawed logic. When you have people who aren't even involved in public school thinking that they can write an article about public school, I'm going to call you out. But no, they've hated me for a long time. And they still, I think what they hate the most about me is that I continuously point out that they have zero conservative values, because if they were true conservatives, they would never advocate for a single law to be passed. And these people are passing laws that they think match their own morals, which is an anti-conservative stance. They might as well be far left, because anyone who wants laws passed to validate their own beliefs is not a conservative. And they hate when I point that out.
Well, and one thing I know I want to put on people's radar here in the Huntsville area is that 3 school board seats will be up for election in August. Do you have any words you want to share with educators and parents and the community as they face that decision in August about, who they want to run the Huntsville City School Board, and, what should they be looking out for?
So I'll say they need to be looking out for city council. We need a better partnership with city council. We need city council that puts schools first, like Madison City does. So if I was going to tell you to really focus on a vote, I would focus on city council that supports their schools, because we are the biggest backbone of the society they're trying to build, and they barely even communicate with us. All their annexes, all their decisions to bring in major corporations, they don't realize how taxing that is on us. Like I was saying earlier, we only get funding a year from the enrollment of a year prior. If you throw up 800 houses, that harms us. So we need city council that is a partner with us, partner with everything else in this city, like that involves infrastructure, roads, hospitals, because they're just doing everything in the name of growth and not thinking about the infrastructure. And we are key infrastructure.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. I mean, public schools are the backbone of our infrastructure in a community.
Yes.
And I think you're right to point to that. There's a lot of growth in this community. It's growing fast. But what kind of growth and who's going to benefit? And are folks going to be left behind? I think those are real questions to ask going into those municipal elections in August. And I appreciate you pointing that out about the city council. I think, for any local school system to be effective, you really need strong partnerships with all the players. And you need strong communication. It's not that you're always going to agree, but you at least need to be talking to each other and keeping each other in the loop on what's going on, so everybody can make plans, if nothing else.
Yep.
But
Great.
Was there anything else you wanted to leave us with today? Really appreciate you making some time this morning.
No, just remember that legislators should be taking your calls. I had no problem going to DC and making visits with people that I have negative things to say about sometimes, because they still owe me as their constituent a chance to talk to them. I talk to anyone who has ever reached out to me. I've never turned anybody down, but our state reps might be turning people down. We need town halls. We need to get the voice out, because if you don't like something, it's typically going to be more at the state level, and we need to start holding them accountable as well. They work for us, and I work for my constituents. That's how this works.
Amen, sister. And I tell you, the entire state government is up for election this year. Every state legislator, the governor, you name it, pretty much, even some of the state board of education, right? So there's a lot of opportunity this year. And I would encourage listeners to take these next few months as your time to interview these candidates, do your homework, find out what you like and don't like about them, find out where they stand. The legislative session's not over. It's not too late to contact those lawmakers right now. Let them know how you feel about these issues. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Appreciate all your work on the Huntsville School Board, and definitely keep us in the loop. If there's anything going on, we'd like to know.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me.
All right. Appreciate it. We're going to be talking to another elected official next week. We'll be talking to State Senator Larry Stutz.
My state senator.
Your state senator is Larry Stutz?
That's right. Yeah. First time I've ever had much of a conversation with him will be on the show. To Miss Alvarez's point, Senator Stutz has not always been the most responsive.
He responded right away to me. Maybe you're just mean, Adam.
I don't think I was that mean. I've been fairly pleasant.
He responded very quickly to me.
Well, you were offering a media appearance.
Well,
I was just a constituent complaining.
That's crazy. He's out of and I was also very I was very appreciative because
I have sent him a nice note about this bill, and so we'll see how the conversation
goes. He's out
goes.
of Tuscumbia though.
Yes.
So his district comes all the way from
Tuscumbia to Athens.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big district.
Yeah. I don't think he spends much time in Athens.
Yeah, well, we're going to be talking to him about his prison reform legislation, which it seems like the legislation is dead this session, but he got the executive, the governor's office and the DOC to go ahead and basically implement key portions of it. Like right now, like in the next couple of months, they're going to be, and so, still seems really good. And then also wanted to talk to him about the Huntsville Hospital acquisition because he is so far the only public official to do any sort of media or news release about this. I mean, right. We know like public officials that have been opposed to it, or at least very skeptical of it. But he's the only one that's made any official public pronouncements on it. So wanted to talk to him about that too. So be talking to and the primaries are coming up, and we need to have some people on to.
Yeah, hey, there's a lot of candidates who want to appear on the Valley Labor Report is what I'm hearing. They want to get that TVLR bump, apparently.
That's right. All right, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. See y'all in a second.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.
Are you looking for a better future, a career that can have you set for life, and to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? If you are, then consider a skilled trades apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. The work of IUPAT is all around us, from the industrial painters who work on the bridges to drywall finishers, floor coverers, the glazers who install the glass in our skylines, and so much more. With an IUPAT apprenticeship, you earn while you learn and receive benefits while learning the trade, including a pension. We provide world-class education free of charge. That's right, no student debt. Our starting salaries for apprentices that graduate is above the national median salary with benefits for entire families. And you have the flexibility to take your trade wherever you'd like in the country to work. IUPAT District Council 77 covers our entire region, so give Adam Booth a call at 205-603-3142 for more information. Again, that phone number is 205-603-3142. Come build a better future with us today and join IUPAT.
We're the nurses, firefighters, and claims representatives that help keep our government services running. We respond to natural disasters. We care for our nation's veterans, and we investigate discrimination in the workplace. We are federal and D.C. government workers, and we are proud to serve the American people. Working in more than 70 agencies across the government, we know we can fulfill our mission because our union has our back. Learn more at afge.org. Paid for by the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO.
Since 1889, the National Association of Letter Carriers has protected the rights of city carriers as they deliver the mail and offer support for their community. The Alabama State Association of Letter Carriers makes their legislative voices heard when it comes to issues involving the U.S. Postal Service and the working members of the union. The National Association of Letter Carriers has been longtime supporters of the Muscular Dystrophy Association and the Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive. This message is sponsored by the Alabama Association of Letter Carriers. To learn more, visit NALC.org.
Unite Here is also a supporter of the Valley Labor Report. They are a labor union that represents 300,000 working people across Canada and the United States. Their members work in the hotel, gaming, food service, manufacturing, textile, distribution, laundry, transportation, and airport industries. You can learn more about Unite Here at unitehere.org.
Come all you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old Union has come in here to dwell.
A battle in the heart of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community, they've been on strike now for months.
Working as long as 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most dangerous conditions.
I really think that the labor movement is the single greatest force for democracy in the history of the United States.
The story of Alabama is a story of not just resilience, but of militancy.
I say no contract, you say no code. No contract, no contract.
If we ain't all free, ain't none of us free.
You're listening to Alabama's only union talk radio show, The Valley Labor Report, with Adam Keller and Jacob Morrison.
That's right, folks. From the mountains of Tennessee to the bayous of Louisiana, broadcasting online and on the radio from the heart of the Tennessee Valley, the Spice Radio Studios in Huntsville, Alabama. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. Today on the program, we just talked to a Huntsville City School Board member about education, and we're about to talk to an Alabama auto worker about organizing the unorganized. If you missed anything, you can find us on Facebook and YouTube at the Valley Labor Report to check it out. If you'd like to call in, you can do that here in about 30 minutes. We'll open the lines, 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can send us a written note at tvlr.fm/contact as well. If you haven't gotten enough of us by the time that we wrap up here on the radio, or if you just want to see what we're up to throughout the week, you can find you can find us anywhere you find anything online. In particular, at our website, though, that's tvlr.fm. But we are also on YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts, all at the Valley Labor Report. Just a reminder, your support helps us stay on the air. A huge portion of our funding comes directly from our listeners, so if you want to become a sustaining donor to the program or make a one-time donation, you can go to patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report or tvlr.fm/donate. We've got a bunch of cool merch for sale at tvlr.fm/store. And finally, if you're a member of a union, then you should try to get your local, your district council, your region, or your international to sponsor the show, and you can reach out to me for more details on that.
That's right, folks. Yeah, we really appreciate all of our donors, all of our sponsors. You help make this project happen, and you help amplify the voices of working people here in the South, so we really appreciate it. Let me add a disclaimer that any viewpoints or opinions expressed in this program belong solely to their author and do not necessarily represent any organization or sponsor. And we want to welcome all of our listeners, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, WVNN, WZZA, WHIV, WGOW, WMSP, Means TV, or through your favorite podcast app. And we are proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network and encourage our listeners to check that out at laborradionetwork.org. And as most of you know, we are not media professionals, just a few diehard unionists who want to amplify the voices of the working class in the American South. We're hoping this project can make a difference on that front, and we can't do it without you, so we want to thank everyone for tuning in today, whether you're a loyal fan or first-time listener. We appreciate you spending some time with us.
Every week in the South, workers organize new unions, they bargain new contracts, they fight for good legislation and against bad legislation, and they put the boss in their place. Last week in the South, 539 workers in 8 bargaining units went public with their union campaigns. 67 workers in 2 bargaining units are trying to decertify their union. 291 workers across 7 bargaining units unionized. 267 workers in 3 bargaining units voted against unionization. 10 workers in 1 bargaining unit withdrew their petition for a union election, and 131 workers in 3 bargaining units decertified their union. Here are the details. In new union campaign, 60 workers at U.S. Foods in Salem, Virginia, filed a petition to hold a union election with the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, Local 171. 416 workers at Molson Coors in Elkton, Virginia, filed a petition to hold a union election with the Teamsters, Local 29. 15 workers at Starbucks in Springfield, Missouri, filed a petition to hold a union election with Starbucks Workers United, as did 19 more workers at a location in Johnson City, Tennessee. Workers likely pushed by their employer and helped by the National Right to Work Foundation filed a petition to decertify Wells Fargo's Workers United, WFWU-CWA, as the union representing 8 workers at Wells Fargo in Spring Hill, Florida. There was also a decertification petition filed against WFWU at a Wells Fargo location in North Carolina only last week. Not a good sign for the burgeoning union campaign that has won so far 29 union elections and represents 900 bankers at Wells Fargo. 15 workers at Houghton Equipment Company in Charleston, West Virginia, filed a petition to hold a union election with the United Association of Plumbers and Pipe Fitters, UA, Local 625, and 5 workers at the Children's National Hospital in Washington, D.C., filed a petition to hold a union election with the District of Columbia Nurses Association, DCNA. In election results, 5 workers at Current Affairs magazine in New Orleans, Louisiana, secured voluntary recognition for their unionization with the Chicago News Guild, Local 34071. 17 workers at Potawatomi Training in Shepherd Air Force Base, Kentucky, voted 12-0 in favor of unionization with the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, IAMAW. That union was on a roll last week, also winning an election among 139 workers at Weyerhaeuser NR Company in Heaters, West Virginia, by 114-14. 9 workers at Sofitel, Washington, D.C. in Washington, D.C. voted 4-4 in a decertification election with the International Union of Operating Engineers, IUOE, Local 99, and ties go to the employer, so IUOE Local 99 was decertified. 69 workers at Sofitel, Washington, D.C., Lafayette Square in Washington, D.C. voted 29-31 in favor of decertifying Unite Here, Local 25. The National Right to Work Foundation aided the anti-union campaign in this election and the one among the IUOE represented workers as well. 246 workers at Cargill Meat Solutions in Fort Worth, Texas, voted despairingly closely against unionization with the United Food and Commercial Workers, UFCW, Local 540. The election was 110-115. 36 workers at the American Chemical Society in Washington, D.C. voted 24-1 in favor of unionization with the Washington-Baltimore News Guild, Local 32035. In grievances, unfair labor, in strikes and bargaining, how would you feel about an immediate 18% raise and a total pay raise of between 35% and 47% over the next 5 years? That's what 11,000 workers in more than 5 unions were able to bargain for at the Ingalls Shipbuilding Yard in Pascagoula, Mississippi. Members just ratified the new contract at the largest manufacturing employer in the state. Very cool that the largest manufacturer in Mississippi is union. And the contract will run through March 8th, 2031. One of the unions, the Sheet Metal Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers, SMART, Local 442, said that they used the contract campaign to organize getting dozens of new members and bringing their density up to 80% of the bargaining unit that they represent. They also said that in addition to the huge general wage increase, they secured a 10% increase in the shift differential. Really good news out of Mississippi last week. Tenants in Kentucky also just won the first ever collectively bargained lease in the South. You heard that right. Last week, the Kentucky Tenants Union announced that they had ratified their first contract with the Texas-based OSPM, a company that owns 1,200 units across Kentucky, Indiana, and Texas. The contract covers 2 buildings in the company's portfolio that have 115 units between them. It officially recognizes the union and promises to recognize future unions at buildings in the company's portfolio. And it provides a list of benefits to renters, like a 10-day grace period for rent payments and a schedule for major repairs. Renters began organizing last year amid complaints of disrepair in their units, like mold, broken ACs, and pest infestations. A few weeks ago, Ford announced that it would be laying off 1,600 workers at Bossk in Kentucky, ending the planned EV battery production plant. The company said that they would still use the facilities, however, but now they are going to be producing grid batteries instead of EV batteries. Workers there had voted to unionize with the United Auto Workers, and the UAW argues that the representation should follow workers to the grid battery plant and that Bossk workers should get the first pick of the jobs. But Ford sees this as an opportunity to get rid of the union and is arguing the same at the National Labor Relations Board. They also again laid off all 1,600 workers that were previously working there, and those workers are going to have to reapply to work at the grid plant. The New York Times sent reporters to the town a couple of weeks ago where the plant resides, and surprisingly few people blamed Trump for the loss of jobs, even though his clawing back of incentives is directly responsible for their loss of employment. A new study tries to answer a question similar to this one: why didn't Biden get credit for the jobs that the Inflation Reduction Act created? They found that, quote, people closer to new renewable energy and green manufacturing facilities are more likely to notice these investments, but are not more likely to credit the Biden administration. Instead, the public sees governors as most responsible, in part because, quote, governors more frequently claim credit than the White House, and companies spread recognition broadly across political actors. They argue further that, quote, for policies to affect politics, voters need to be able to trace them back to the responsible political actors, which is challenging in a complex information environment. Green spending channeled through private firms alone is unlikely to build ground-up coalitions for climate policy. My opinion is that this is a convincing argument for public ownership and production. In political and legislative updates, Florida's anti-worker Republicans just passed another anti-union bill last week, building on the one that passed 3 years ago under a bill that quickly moved through both houses of the legislature and now heads to the governor's desk. Public sector unions will continue to have to recertify their union every year if their membership falls below 60%, but they must, in an election, now secure votes from at least 26% of the bargaining unit rather than a simple majority of those who vote. Many elected officials don't meet that threshold in their own elections due to low turnout, but they want unions to do that, even though union members who went to testify against the bill in Florida's state capitol said that the body which is charged with running elections in Florida is not consistent in its running of those union elections, reporting that voters have not received ballots and the like. If we missed anything, let us know at tvlr.fm/contact, and we'll try to include it in next week's roundup of Southern labor news. Also, subscribe to the newsletter at tvlr.fm so that you can get the exhaustive version of Last Week in Southern Labor. There is always about twice as much as what we're able to get to on the radio. So make sure you subscribe at tvlr.fm. We have our next guest on the line. Really excited to talk to Jeremy again. Jeremy Kimbrell is an organizer with the United Auto Workers, also a fired Mercedes worker who was fired for his union support, is what he alleges. His case is before the NLRB right now. Jeremy, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. Thanks for taking the time.
Good to be here.
Really great to have you back. I know that you're a very busy guy, so we appreciate you taking the time. I wanted to talk to you because there was some news that came out last week about Mercedes and the United Auto Workers. Mercedes just agreed to a settlement with the National Labor Relations Board that the UAW has argued is insufficient. Can you tell the listeners what is in the settlement that Mercedes agreed to with the National Labor Relations Board, first off?
Yeah, so they pretty much just lay out a list of what they will not do. They have, I think it's in bold 10 times down the list. We will not interfere with exercising your rights. We will not tell you you can't distribute literature in areas that's legal. We had a worker that was disciplined during the campaign. There's 4 levels of discipline, the fourth one being you're terminated. And they skipped to the second level with this guy over an issue where all he did was his group leader announced some raises they were going to give us prior to our election. And after he announced that, the worker said, it's still not enough. If anybody is interested in one of them cards, I've got one in my locker. So that was a level 2 write-up, which carries a year probation. And so, the government is making them remove that from his record. And by the way, he had never been written up before in all his years. He had worked there almost 25 years. So that's in there. Also, they make them say they will not threaten to close the plant and move it to Mexico or relocate it to anywhere. They also make them say they'll not, workers won't lose wages if they decide to unionize. They won't watch them and interrogate them for handing out distribution materials. All things like that, which, there's a clause in here where it says they're not admitting guilt, but you draw your own conclusion as to whether they're admitting guilt. Everybody in the plant will know exactly why this is posted and what they're talking about. And for those wondering, when you talk about having to post something, where will it be posted? All the federally required boards, OSHA, minimum wage, so there'll be a posting there, and also the government's requiring them to post these somewhere near the time clocks. So pretty broad distribution if the company does what they're told to do.
Yeah, that is. I'm glad to hear about the additional placements because those kind of government boards where people are required to put wage and hour division stuff and EEOC stuff. It's I think that a lot of people, there's so many of those notices that people can kind of glaze over and not if there's a new paper on that board it's easy to overlook that, I think. So I'm glad that there's going to be next to the time clocks just this one notice that they'll have to see. And just for the listeners, all of that is the law. They're not supposed to. It is illegal to threaten to close the plant if workers unionize. It's illegal to threaten to take away wages and benefits if workers unionize. It's illegal to surveil and interrogate workers about their union support. It's illegal to retaliate against people for their union support. And so this is just them basically saying that we're going to follow the law. And it's the position of the UAW and your position, I think, that they did violate the law in many of those ways over the course of the election that happened 2 years ago, and that their violations of the law were really instrumental in the ultimate result of the election. Is that right?
No question. I know you where you use the word alleged sometimes is like, yeah, that's like, the technically correct term. Hell, it ain't alleged. The fact that they agreed to this, in case people don't know, when there is NLRB charges filed and a board agent investigates, it takes so long to go to hearing. They investigate, try to determine if there's pretty much provable guilt, and then they recommend a settlement. And actually, in this settlement, the first thing that the government ordered was all these incidents, they were so egregious that they actually told the company they were going to recommend a revote. And then this settlement came from that recommendation. And actually, in the fall, we had a verbal agreement with the company that they would do this posting, but also because they had done a lot of the union busting at captive audience meetings, requiring the whole plant to attend. So they were going to have to read this off publicly. And at first they verbally agreed. Then after the government shut down, they decided, with some of the new appointments at the labor board, that they were like, well, we believe we might can get by without this. So they came back and took their agreement back. And then basically this agreement was kind of forced. I mean, the settlement was agreed to. The only thing to discuss was whether it would be read aloud or just posted. So that really is the crux of it. Also, that I didn't add, this distribution will also be sent out by either text or email to all the workers. I'm sure the company will choose email so it can go to spam, but in the language it does say text or email. And also, this is not the end of this. This settled just part of it. And later in spring, there will be another hearing to actually decide if it was so egregious that the election was tainted and that a revote is in order. So that is still that's still in line for a hearing.
Okay, wow. So this settlement doesn't even settle the question of like the remedies, the total remedies for the election, and there are also individual instances of discipline that the UAW that are still live and contested, including yours, right?
Yeah. So we've got a few of those. They're not in this because all of this is what took place up to the election. And the federal government is short-staffed,
right,
and then had the government shut down. So there is a huge backlog, and these came first. So the other cases will come sometime after that.
You're not wrong at all about the way that how long this stuff takes. I mean, Matt Brunig has a piece out that came out back in January, where he talks about the average time that it takes to get to resolution on these cases, and it is just insane and is really indicative of the underfunding of so many of our agencies in the government right now. The median number of days. That means a median is half of the cases take longer than this, right? And then half of them take less time. The median number of days between filing an unfair labor practice charge and an NLRB complaint being issued, right? A complaint being issued is not the end of it, right? That's just the NLRB taking their first kind of official action, sort of validating an unfair or invalidating an unfair labor practice charge. That number is now up to 441 days. That is over a year just to get to the first thing. And then you have to, if you get a complaint and the employer contests it, then you got to go to an administrative law judge's decision, and the median days to get from a complaint to a law judge decision is 245. Then the median days between an ALJ decision and a board decision is 500. I mean, it's just the whole thing. It's, we got to 10x, 50x the budget of the NLRB. We got to arm them, and we got to give them a mech, I think. You don't have to endorse that, Jeremy. But so the UAW said that, this settlement was insufficient. And so, you kind of talked about that a little bit. But is there anything else that you want to say about the insufficiency of the settlement?
Yeah, I mean, there's some other things that were basically removed. Initially they were supposed to have to read it aloud. Also, they have an out that they were union busting on, and the original agreement was that they would have to put this information out on the out. And so the new Labor Relations Board General Counsel removed that language. So it's insufficient there, but it's ultimately insufficient because when you do all these violations, it impedes a worker from having the independent right to choose. We talk about these free and fair elections. I hear them all the time. I reckon every election is crooked, Well, I can tell you this one was crooked. And so there's only one thing to do when if there is an election that one party cheated, is you throw it out and have another. And so that's the only way to really remedy what took place during that election. And so, yeah, it's insufficient. It's insufficient even on settlement grounds because they removed part of the things that really were reasonable. But ultimately, it'll be insufficient until those workers, get to have an election where the company is not threatening to go to Mexico, and the company is not threatening to write people up for handing out hats off work time. And when the worker does speak after his boss spoke basically anti-union, and all he did was speak, and yet he gets level 2 corrective action. Not to mention the company CEO gets up in a captive audience meeting and says the UAW can't help you. They can't help us be better. So, I mean, there's many levels of it. And like you said, it continued after the election. And my case under fair circumstances will be a shoe-in win, and they'll appeal it to the ends of the earth. But anyway, that's the reality we live in.
It's been almost exactly 2 years since the election. It was April of 2024. Can you talk about what it's been like inside the plant since then?
Yeah, so after the election, of course, they gave workers raises and made a lot of promises, told them they'd be able to vote on shifts, and they did vote. And what's happened since is backsliding to the way it was. They voted on their shift preferences, and then the company has changed shifts on some people 4 times just in that 2 years.
Wow.
Back and forth, so they're choosing the shifts for them. The management threatening the workers, firing the hell out of the workers, has not stopped. And one of the chief points the company and the union busters gave for the no vote was, why don't you give this new CEO a year? And I think what a lot of people are beginning to see is it maybe doesn't matter who the boss is. It's just going to be the same no matter what, as long as they have the right to just do what they want. So that's kind of how people are feeling inside the plant. Is it's starting to look a lot like it did before we ever had a union election.
That's what workers at Volkswagen, that's the conclusion that they ultimately came to, and why they ultimately voted to unionize a couple of years ago with the UAW after having voted against unionization 2 times previously. And of course, there's been huge news out of Volkswagen in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where we are also on the radio on WGOW right now. We're talking to Jeremy Kimbrell, an organizer with the United Auto Workers. The big news is that they got an agreement and ratified a contract that is going to provide for 20% wage increases over the next 4 years. It's going to provide for an immediate $6,500 bonus, as well as regular bonuses every year going forward. It's going to provide for a grievance procedure, just cause discipline, and so I'm curious. How have folks at Mercedes reacted to this news out of Volkswagen?
It's been all positive. We have put the information out on what they actually gained in their contract, just to let workers know, to basically combat some of the things that were told during the campaign about how you start at zero and you can lose. All this nonsense, how they're going to likely to close the plant. And we just used example after example. Volkswagen didn't lose a single thing. Not one benefit did they give up. Everything was a gain. And some of it was huge gains. And the company did sit down and bargain with them. And so we've passed that on to the workers. And of course, the things that you said, but some other things. People think these are little things, but they're huge. The workers bargain so that while they work, they can wear an earbud in their ear. Now, people think that's small. I mean, workers have asked for things like that, and the company won't allow it.
Right.
And so in the contract, they got that. And what that does is that makes a worker's day go a little bit better. when they can listen to music or a podcast or whatever, maybe some church, some preaching. It helps their day go by, and little things like that. And they got a lot of stuff, man. Their vacation is, this is Volkswagen. Let's be real. It's not Mercedes. Them jokers have more vacation. They have just true like emergency sick days that they don't have to have a reason to come in. 5 of those. Man, workers at Mercedes are 1 second late. They can be an hour late 3 times and not get written up. If you're 1 second late at Mercedes, you get written up. You get a mark. Wow. So, I mean, all these things taken as a whole is like, what do you have to lose as a worker? These international companies are here for a reason. They're building products. They're building it to be made primarily here. So they save on the shipping costs. And so that all the, primarily the stuff they build here is gas engines. And that's North America. We love our fossil fuels. So they're not going anywhere. There's nowhere to go. And the plant, where they threatened to, go to Mexico or whatever, hell, that plant's shut. I mean, it was never a risk of Alabama shutting down, man. The company just always threatens. They're a bully. All these doggone companies that are publicly owned, the bosses in there are bullies. And by beating the workers down, you keep more profit to spread to the shareholders and the executives. And workers just need to know, man, you are the one that builds the stuff. Your labor is what makes it happen. And if you'll just stick together, man, you can get a better life.
Absolutely. And I mean, to the extent that there even is, some risk of, like, if we get a little bit better, then maybe they're going to go overseas. I mean, it's not like there's nothing there, but the answer to that is not, so let's kind of, as Southerners and Alabamians, prostrate ourselves before these international corporations. The answer is not only for us and in Chattanooga and Tuscaloosa to stand up and organize and demand better. It's also, the answer is for us to support our sisters and brothers who are doing the same jobs as we are in Mexico and bring their standard of living up, so that way we're not competing against each other on a basis of exploitation. We're competing against, we're competing in like who can kind of make the better products, not who can, be exploited the most. That's the real answer. And that's how workers in the U.S. were able to get such a good standard of living at the big 3 automakers. It wasn't by workers in Michigan organizing and then workers in Kentucky kind of saying, oh, well, we're not, come here, Ford and GM, and take advantage of us instead of them in Ohio. It was everybody stood up and everybody, and that's what you got to do. I think that's the real answer there.
No, it is. I've said it many times. I long for a world where companies compete with who builds the prettiest, who has the most applicable, what product makes the most sense, and not compete with who can beat the shit out of their workers and treat their workers the worst to squeeze every last drop of profit. I would love to live in a world like that, even across, international boundaries, but especially inside the country where, it's most direct. But no, I don't think anybody wants to see people living abroad taken advantage of either. It's really disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely. Got it. Just a reminder, we're on the radio. Is there any news that we should be keeping an eye out for out of the UAW in the Southern Automotive Manufacturers?
Yeah, so of course later in spring there's going to be the hearing over whether there should be a revote at the Mercedes plant. So you can definitely look out for that. Also, like I said, my case and other cases are pending. For actions that happened, it still involved our participating in the union election, but it did happen afterwards. So those cases will come to trial. And, not long ago, Sean Fain announced that, he was targeting 25,000 Southern auto workers to be unionized. And so if you take a look at only Alabama, the primary auto plants and their suppliers add up to over 50,000 workers. And so, any workers that want to find out how they can have a better life, get better treatment at work, they just need to just come together and start talking to each other. And then with a little help, see about forming unions in their workplace. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So I'd say just be watching and listening, and hell, man, get up and be a part of it.
If a worker at Mercedes or any other non-union auto plant in Alabama or anywhere in the South wants to get in touch and organize with the UAW, how can they do that?
Yeah, so, easily at uaw.org/organize. It lists the phone number on there, very simple number. You also can fill out on that page, and an organizer will reach out to you. But I will throw this little caveat in. Of course, Jacob and Adam both have my phone number. If anybody needs help organizing, if you can get word to them and you let me know, I'll make sure personally that somebody talks to you and gets you headed in the right direction, man. I don't believe in bullshitting about this stuff. I'm tired of seeing Alabama workers kicked around.
All right. Jeremy Kimber, organizer with the UAW, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
Appreciate y'all. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, man.
All right. We're going to take a break. We will be right back. The Laborers International Union of North America, LIUNA Local 366, is proudly recruiting North Alabama local workers to work construction and nuclear plant maintenance. If you're interested, please contact April at our training center to start the process at 256-904-1753. No experience is needed. We offer free training, but you must be able to pass a background check and a drug test. Local hiring that grows our community with good-paying jobs that have benefits is our mission. Live better, work union, Local 366, feel the power. The Valley Labor Report is also supported by the Communication Workers of America. Learn more at cwa-union.org.
Support for this program is provided by the International Association for Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama. Learn more at iamaw44.org.
The Valley Labor Report is also sponsored by the United Automobile, Aerospace, and Agricultural Implement Workers of America, better known as the UAW. They are one of the largest and most diverse unions in North America, with members in virtually every sector of the economy. UAW-represented workplaces range from multinational corporations, small manufacturers, and state and local governments, to colleges and universities, hospitals, and private nonprofit organizations. The UAW has more than 400,000 active members and more than 580,000 retired members in the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. You can learn more about the UAW and join at uaw.org. The Valley Labor Report is also sponsored by Labor Notes. Labor Notes is a media and organizing project that has been the voice of union activists who want to put the movement back in the labor movement since 1979. You can learn more about Labor Notes at labornotes.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for this program also comes from the Mid-South Council of Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. Learn more at rwdsu.info.
Union leaders, do you want a powerful website and mobile app built just for your members? The Union Active system, created by Unions America, makes it easy to share news and documents, send alerts, and keep your members engaged anytime, anywhere. Trusted by thousands of unions, Union Active streamlines communication so you can focus on what matters most, your members. With real-time updates, secure messaging, and custom features built for unions, you'll keep your members informed and engaged 24/7. Get Union Active today. Visit unionactive.com to learn more. Union Active, the ultimate website and communication system for unions.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old Union has come in here to dwell.
Labor creates all wealth should go to labor. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. Appreciate everybody tuning in. The phone number is 844-899-TVLR. Let's go ahead and open the lines, 844-899-8857. Would love to get your thoughts on our interview. If you have any, welcome to call in. Interviewed that, or enjoyed that interview. I hope you'll forgive us on the language. So, Adam, have you got any plugs before we get to Boss Watch?
Sure. I think I've got a couple of plugs to throw out there. I do want to remind folks that March 28th is the next big No Kings Day of action across the country. I know AFT, CWA, several unions have endorsed it. There's going to be actions happening across the South, across the country, even across Alabama. I've seen small towns like Jacksonville, Scottsboro, Fort Payne, Athens. The call-in studio web all interface. Sorts of folks. So that's March 28th. I'll be speaking at the Montgomery Action, and I know there will be stuff. There's going to be stuff happening all over the place. So it's a good opportunity to get out and connect with other folks who are concerned about the state of this country. And as always, I want to encourage folks to go to labornotes.org/events. They've got some good, cool trainings coming up. Online, they have a stewards workshop on March 16th on investigating grievances. They also have their What to Do When Your Union Breaks Your Heart workshop on the 17th. And then coming up in April, they have a two-parter, Winning a Strong Contract. So if you're coming up on a contract campaign, or maybe you just finished a contract and you're thinking about how you could do it better, that's a good workshop to check out. Again, labornotes.org/events.
All right, let's get to Boss Watch. Every week in the South, bosses violate the law. Their workers die on the job. Bosses steal from their workers. They retaliate against their workers. They discriminate. They sexually harass their workers. And sometimes they get caught. We try to let you know when that happens. Over in Louisiana, the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission filed an action in federal court today to enforce a subpoena issued during its investigation into allegations against Jamrock Solutions, LLC. Jamrock Solutions is an Amazon delivery service partner based in Theodore, Alabama, and a charge received by the EEOC in April 2024 alleged violation of federal law by failing to accommodate an employee's pregnancy-related limitations. The charge alleged that a former driver at Jamrock's distribution center in St. Rose, Louisiana, sought an accommodation for a pregnancy-related lifting restriction, and that Jamrock claimed there was no accommodation to allow her to continue operating as a driver during her pregnancy. The driver then sought to change to a dispatcher position as an accommodation, as she had prior dispatch experience. Instead, Jamrock hired 2 new dispatchers and removed her from the schedule entirely, according to the charge. The Pregnant Workers Fairness Act requires employers to provide reasonable accommodations to an employee's known limitations related to pregnancy, said Rudy Sostita, regional attorney for the EEOC's Houston District Office. When an employer fails to comply with an EEOC subpoena, the commission will seek relief in court as appropriate. During its investigation, the EEOC issued a subpoena to Jamrock seeking a copy of the driver's work schedules, a copy of the job descriptions for Jamrock's driver and dispatcher positions, and the identities of all individuals hired during the relevant 4-month period. The EEOC filed the action in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Louisiana after first attempting to obtain voluntary compliance with its investigative requests. In Kentucky, the Louisville Comedy Club will pay $372,000 in monetary relief and furnish extensive injunctive relief to resolve a finding of sex discrimination and retaliation by the EEOC in a conciliation agreement. The conciliation follows an EEOC investigation into charges where the agency found that employees were subjected to sexual harassment by a manager. The investigation also found that the club failed to comply with mandatory federal reporting requirements and failed to post the Know Your Rights Workplace Discrimination is Illegal poster. Such alleged conduct violates Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits employment discrimination, including sexual harassment. Under the 3-year conciliation agreement settling the charges, Louisville Comedy Club will pay over $372,000 in monetary damages and will also conduct Title VII training for employees, post an equal employment opportunity non-discrimination notice, distribute anti-discrimination policies, including harassment and retaliation policies, and appoint an equal employment opportunity compliance officer. Rounding out in Mississippi, Diamond Jim's and Miss Donna's Old Farm Beef, a Mississippi steakhouse, violated federal law when it fired a worker because of a seizure condition. The U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission charged in a lawsuit. According to the lawsuit, the worker disclosed her condition to the restaurant when she started work and told the company that she had not had a seizure in years. The suit stated that she had a seizure months after she began work, and the restaurant fired her in February of 2023, shortly after learning of her seizure, and told her that she should focus on her health. The alleged conduct violates the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, which guarantees equal employment opportunity for qualified individuals with disabilities. The EEOC filed suit in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Mississippi after first attempting to reach a pre-litigation settlement through its administrative conciliation process. That is it for Boss Watch. If we missed anything, let us know at tvlr.fm/contact if there are other bad boss stories that we did not include. And subscribe to our newsletters at tvlr.fm to get it right in your email inbox every single week. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us in the chat. Like and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't done that already. Somebody mentioned that the Labor Notes convention has already sold out, and that is true. It's already, which is crazy because they didn't even. I don't know why they opened registration with an early bird. Like, they have an early bird price that goes until April 1st, but this is the second time in a row that they've sold out before April 1st. So, like, having the April 1st be the end of early bird kind of, when I read that, I thought, oh, so I've got until like April to kind of make a decision about whether or not I want to go. But then I got an email, oh, there's only like 100 spots left. Hurry up and get yours. So I had to hurry up and get my spot.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. You and I went the last 2 times, 2024, 2022, and it was great. Great experience, by far the best conference I've ever attended. And I've now attended quite a few conferences in my life, and it's by far the best one. I really, really enjoy all the workshops that I've attended. It's good training, good trainers. But of course, the best part of it is just the good vibes of being around thousands of brothers and sisters who care about this labor movement, who want to build a stronger, more democratic, fighting labor movement. So you get to be around all kinds of folks from all over the country, all over the world, who believe in that, who believe in solidarity across the working class and building our power together. So it's really exciting. I'm looking forward to it. Hope to see plenty of folks there, hopefully some listeners there. And yeah, it's going to be a great opportunity. So if you've never been, and you missed out this year, definitely put it on your radar for 2 years from now in 2028. That should be a real fun one with May Day 2028. I don't know if it's still going to be in June that year, but I think it's typically in June. So, yeah, great conference. Love what Labor Notes does. And while I have the mic, there were a couple of gripes I had this week that I was just going to share with y'all. We mentioned the Education Trust Fund budget this morning when we were talking to the Huntsville School Board member, Ms. Alvarez. Something I wanted to point out in this Education Trust Fund budget in Alabama, there is an extra, I believe, $250 million going to school choice. There is about $10 million of the ETF has now been diverted to the State House renovation project. They are tearing down the old State House and building a new State House. And so there are public school dollars contributing to that. A lot of education retirees are really fed up right now. The active educators are expected to get a big 2% raise. Hope you don't spend it all in one place. But the poor retirees are looking at nothing right now. And for context, Jacob, do you know, like, when's the last time education retirees in Alabama got a cost of living adjustment, like a real COLA to their pension check?
I do not, but from the tone of your voice, it sounds like it's going to be a surprisingly long amount of time.
Yeah, it was 2007.
No shot.
And
20 years ago?
That was the year I graduated high school. I'm now growing bald, and I have a daughter who's in 4th grade, and living my life. Been living my whole adult life, and they haven't had a COLA.
Wow.
There is no dedicated revenue source for COLAs. So that is one issue, is that back in the day, there were some unfunded COLAs given to the retirees because, politicians thought, just give them a COLA, they'll vote for me. Who has to worry about where the money comes from, right? So, obviously the retirement system of Alabama doesn't want to see anything unfunded, any kind of burden on the pension system itself. But it's been 4 years since the education retirees got a bonus check. So since they haven't been able to fund a full COLA, every now and then they throw them a little bonus check. And so 4 years ago, they did get $300. But I don't know about you. I've seen prices go up over the last 4 years. Cost of living is really, really hitting hard. I imagine especially hard for folks on a fixed income. So that is one of the big fights happening in the State House right now. The retirees are calling on legislators to do something for them. But it really just brings up the big issue, which is we need more revenue in this state. There's a lot of pressing needs across the state. I mean, we rank pretty much at the bottom of everything, right? Like, quality of life is among the worst in the country. And so there's a lot of pressing public services needs for the public good, and there's not a lot of money to pay for any of this because Alabama ranks 50th in revenue raised. And to make it worse, the revenue we do raise disproportionately falls on poor working class people. So we have sky-high sales taxes. We'll even tax your groceries and medications. But don't worry. Rich people can deduct their federal income taxes from their Alabama taxes. We're the only state that lets you do all that, right? The only state that'll let you deduct your full federal income tax burden from your state taxes. And so that's a loophole that primarily benefits the wealthy. And if you listen to this show, of course, you know that the state of Alabama gives generous tax incentives and subsidies to corporations left and right. Every year there's various tax breaks to benefit, certain corporate interests and wealthy folks. Meanwhile, we've got hundreds of thousands of people uninsured and underinsured. We've got a housing and affordability crisis in the state. Energy prices have been a big topic of debate in the state. Some folks may remember that a few weeks ago, they tried to take the public out of the Public Service Commission. This is the utility board that Alabama voters select to regulate, or it's supposed to regulate Alabama Power, the big electricity monopoly that covers everything pretty much south of the TVA region. Lawmakers tried to bamboozle folks. It resulted in such massive pushback, they dropped it, but they've now come back with a very similar bill, and ironically called the Power to the People Act, but it seems to do nothing like that. If I'm looking at what folks like Energy Alabama have put out, Energy Alabama said SB 360, which is called the Power to the People Act, sounds promising, but buried inside it is a provision giving the governor's handpicked Secretary of Energy control over the PSC's agenda and personnel. That's not power to the people. That's a backdoor political takeover of utility regulation. We beat HB 392 to protect your vote. We're not handing that power to a new government official now. So that was from Energy Alabama. There is a good bill that they're supporting, and a lot of folks are supporting, called HB 475. It would require rate hearings under oath, reducing Alabama Power's outrageous profit margins and banning them from charging you for their lobbying and political activities. In other words, some real oversight and real relief. So that's interesting. Lots of conversations happening around Alabama Power, the Public Service Commission. The hearings got pretty heated this week in the State House, is my understanding. In my last gripe about Alabama as we wrap up, I did attend the Cover Alabama Advocacy Day this week and got some new numbers from Families USA about Medicaid expansion. And despite the big, beautiful bill and its attack on Medicaid expansion and Medicaid more broadly, Families USA ran the numbers, and we still could expand Medicaid in Alabama. And in fact, it would save us money. We could literally give more people health care and save tax dollars and create jobs, right? Less people would suffer and die. Our economy would grow from the bottom up. And oh, by the way, we'd actually save a little money in the process. Seems like a no-brainer. Seems like it's way past time to expand Medicaid. We've been beating that drum for over a decade now. But hey, better late than never.
We've been talking a lot about education, and I saw that the Alabama State Board of Education passed new school textbooks, and there were some people that objected to them.
The Eagle Forum. One
of the people said that he objected to the way that sharecropping was described.
Oh, I saw.
He said that the materials presented it as whites taking advantage of former slaves without context. Wow. Crazy. You just say that after announcing your full government name.
It was a 5-4 vote. Those right-wing cranks from the Eagle Forum and other groups almost derailed new social studies textbooks.
Crazy.
That have been needed for years.
Going into the second half of the program, find us YouTube, Facebook, The Valley Labor Report. Keep watching. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. We're off the radio now. Appreciate everybody sticking around. We don't have a guest in the second half of the program. We got some good stuff to talk about, though, so make sure you stay tuned. I did see, Mark, your thing in the chat about the jobs report. We can riff on that a little bit because I did see it. Seems bad. Seems bad. 844-899-TVLR, 844-899-8857. Would love to take some calls in the second half of the program today. So go ahead and line up, and we'll be right back.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old Union has come in here to dwell.
This is Overtime, a production of the Valley Labor Report, the largest union talk radio and online news outfit in the South, coming to you from the heart of the Tennessee Valley in the Spice Radio studios in Huntsville, Alabama. We are run by working people and for working people in the South and all over the country. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. Appreciate you spending some time with us. If you'd like to call in or leave us a voicemail, the phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can also send us a written note at tvlr.fm/contact. Adam, I want to riff on this crazy Eagle Forum freaks and the the Alabama State Department of Education. I saw this just as you were kind of riffing. I was scrolling through Facebook and I seen it come out, and I could not believe it. This guy talking about sharecropping needs to be put in the proper context. You know, I have not. That's crazy. I mean, his name was Robert Monk. He just came up, gave his full government name, and said it was something. I'm pulling it up right now, but so I can let me just give you the full quote because it is nuts.
I think both Alabama Daily News and AO.com reported it because it was him and a leader from the Eagle Forum that I saw quoted.
Following the Civil War, the landowners, notice they're described as landowners, not slaveholders. That's how they got their land. They owned people, you freak. Following the Civil War, this is him, the landowners in the South had the land but no labor. The freed slaves had labor to offer but no land, and both were cash broke. So the freed slaves provided the labor and the landowners provided the land for farming. Both parties got a shared profit, and this helped both parties survive, yet the materials simply presented it as whites taking advantage of former slaves without context. I mean, that's crazy. Going up and saying your government name and then say not behind an anonymous anime avatar on twitter.com. Government name, people can see your face. Sharecropping was kind of based, actually, a little bit.
Wow.
That's just nuts. I mean, people talk about like reparations today and how that is for multiple reasons, unjust, either or unjust or impractical or it doesn't make sense or whatever. And I mean, I'm basically there, right? But everybody that I talk to agrees, or everybody that I know agrees that reparations would have been appropriate at the end of slavery and that much more punishment should have been doled out to the slave owners, the people who owned other people,
and who started a war over it.
And
let us not forget.
And yes, exactly. Threw the sons and daughters of the South into body bags to protect their ability to own other people. Absolutely disgusting lizard people, demonically possessed, and I mean, the right and proper thing would have been everything that they own is taken from them and given to the slaves. And maybe if we don't imprison them for the rest of their lives, they can go and work on the farms. Maybe they get that.
I mean, we had a real opportunity with Reconstruction to try to live up to this country's ideals and what it put on paper.
Yeah.
And there were efforts to build multiracial democracy, and there were black elected officials in places like Alabama and Mississippi throughout the South during Reconstruction.
Yeah.
There were initiatives like the Freedmen's Bureau, which was like an early, experimental version of like the social safety net that we were able to secure in the 20th century. But the problem is Reconstruction was not finished here in the South. And if you look at so many of the issues that we face today, I think a lot of it does go back to that, right? Like, we didn't have justice for people, particularly black people in the South. We did not get justice. Reconstruction was ended prematurely. It was never fully completed or carried out. The former slave owning class, the white supremacist ruling class was able to regain power and concentrate their power and keep white and black folks divided. And, there were, of course, efforts to upend that. Eventually, if you went later into the 19th century and, towards the end of the 19th century, you had the populist movement that did take hold in many, many states. I know you talked about Texas populism a little bit last week. We had a populist movement here in Alabama as well. Reuben Kolb should have been the governor.
Yep.
Probably won the governor's race, maybe more than once, actually, but had it stolen from him, right? So the elites in places like Alabama and the South have done a really good job for a really, really long time trying to hold on to their wealth and power and keep us divided. And they use a lot of propaganda. They use a lot of, religious rhetoric, racial rhetoric, nationalistic rhetoric, all of it to try to keep poor and working class people divided, because the truth is we are the majority. The vast majority of us don't own anything. We don't make money off our money. We got to work for that.
Yeah.
Right? We've got to sell our labor to somebody else. Or we're so marginalized, we're piecing together government benefits and charity and mutual aid to just scratch out a living. But the reality is most of us have more in common with each other than we do the bosses and the politicians. And, they spend a lot of time and energy and money to keep that from us. We're the most diverse class. As the working class, we are the most diverse. It is a rainbow. And so the only way we can make progress is through a rainbow coalition. That is how we can make progress. When working people unite across religious, racial, gender, other lines, right? Like, it doesn't matter where someone comes from, who they love, what they talk like, what they think like. If they're a worker, they're one of us. We are in this together because it's our labor that powers the economy. It's our labor that makes this happen. Without us, there is no economy. There is no wealth. And we're in a time in this moment in history, I think, where we're really at inflection points. We see the rise of AI and automation. We see the way we are in the most, economically unequal time in modern history. So we are getting to a point where, lots of us are expendable on some level or another. So that's something we have to wrestle with. And I think we are running out of time as working people to get it together. We're facing we're facing multiple layers of crisis at the same time, all bearing down on us. And at the root is the fact that, a handful of people have all the wealth and power, and the rest of us don't. And that's our job, is to get the rest of us all swimming in the same direction and all pulling together and holding hands best we can to work together around our common interests. Because I really do believe that most people just want a decent life for themselves and their families. They want to be able to retire with dignity. They want to be able to come home safely from work. They want to be able to raise their families, maybe go on a vacation every now and then. They want to have a better future for their kids than they had growing up. These are just basic things, right? I think people want to be able to go to the doctor when they're sick or the dentist when they need it. People want just basic necessities, basic quality of life. This is the richest country in the history of the world. But you wouldn't know that because hundreds of people die every day from poverty in this country. Most of us don't feel like this is the wealthiest empire that's ever existed. Most of us aren't getting that. And the last thing I'll say, even though I know this is a little bit of a tangent, but, the fact is, we have to look at the economy and how much of our economy is driven by war and bloodshed. Especially, places like Huntsville. For those of you who aren't, local, Huntsville, Alabama is Pentagon South. A lot of the jobs and industry in the Huntsville area, as with many other areas, is driven by the military-industrial complex. And so that's something else we have to be looking at as working people is not just the fact that we all deserve good jobs, but we deserve good jobs that are good for the planet, that are good for our people and good for the community. And so we have to have a peace economy. And, I'm just still, I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It's really shocking, maybe not shocking. It's just disgusting. The state of the world that we're in right now, seeing the Islamophobia that's been coming up lately, including from our own Senator Tommy Tuberville, who wants to be governor.
I mean, real knuckle-dragging stuff.
It really is. It's gross. I mean, it's stuff that I grew up hearing in the 2000s after 9/11.
Yeah.
It's really disgusting to see us going back to that. I have had the pleasure of getting to know and meet Muslims in the community for years. When I first moved to North Alabama and got to be in classes with fellow students who were Muslim, when I was a teacher and had the opportunity to work with Muslims and also teach Muslim students. And guess what? Just people like everybody else, just regular people who want a decent life for themselves, want a safe neighborhood, want a good future for their kids. Every one of them I've met, every single one of them, certainly a better human being than Tommy Tuberville. And so I really am disgusted to see the Islamophobia that's coming out. Again, the ruling elites want us to be mad at each other. They want us to be mad at each other over religion or gender, things like that. When at the bottom, I mean, for me, it's like, I really don't care what you believe, what you do, who you hang out with, what you love. That's all your business. Let's work together to make our lives better, collectively. And people like Tuberville don't want us thinking that way. They want us fueled by hate and fear and division. But we have to choose solidarity over bigotry. And we have to, especially those of us who look like me, we've got to talk to our cousins who look like us and really, really reach them with that message. That solidarity over bigotry is our path to success. And the bigotry is holding us all back. Not just the minorities, but everybody. We're all being hurt by this. Some more so than others. And that is really a big challenge that we have when it comes to the white working class and engaging folks here in the South who have been propagandized to think individually, to think often in bigoted ways. But it is possible. People can be reached. And I think the best way we do that is we show up for one another and we fight for each other in solidarity and have each other's back, because we have this old saying in the labor movement that an injury to one is an injury to all. Do we really believe that? Do we act on that? That is our mission.
Yep. And, unfortunately, it seems like maybe we have somebody in the chat that agrees with Robert Monk's statement that sharecropping was a mutually beneficial arrangement for former slaves and slave owners. Although he's not coming out and saying that. Unlike, we do have to give a little bit of credit to Robert Monk for being willing to just kind of say what he thinks, which is that sharecropping was a basically fair agreement, and that's the way that we should educate people. But Mark in the chat is just kind of like nibbling around the edges, right?
I know exactly what you're about, because there are a lot of butthurt white people who try to play games with history and pretend that, maybe slavery wasn't that bad. Or, you know what, maybe it really wasn't white Americans' fault. Or this or that. Read a book, read a damn book, go to the library, figure out how this country has operated for the last 250 years as a formal country, but the 400 or 500 years of history on this continent, the transcontinental, the transatlantic slave trade, the use of people as chattel, right? These are real phenomena that happened, right? And you can't just pretend that it didn't happen or try to, brush it aside or bring in, I know about this because the Irish or this or.
Well, it's just a bunch of stuff that's like not, the question was at issue at the board meeting was sharecropping an exploitative system post-slavery that took advantage of former slaves. And so he comes in with questions, where did slavery originally start? That's not at issue. Did you know that white people used to be slaves, 1,000 years ago or something? Okay, we would have opposed that. Who invaded Spain in the 700s? What is the relevance of that? The first recorded slave owner in the U.S. was an African American. Don't know if that's true. Probably not. I don't know. But it doesn't matter. What percentage of slave owners in 1862 were black versus white? It's totally not.
I'm going to let you in on a secret, Mark. And this is a pretty big one because it shook me up when I learned it. There was no such thing as the white race and the black race until a few hundred years ago. Turns out, poor black people and poor white people over in the colonies were starting to get wise to their common interests, and they were starting to work together. And the rich planters said, hell no, we can't have that. We can't have all these folks banding together.
Yep.
So you white ones over here, you're
better.
special. You're better than the black ones over here. We're going to have a racialized system. And now we're going to think of people as white or black. They had never thought of people like that before.
Right.
Ethnicities, cultural groups, sure. But the idea of a white race or a black race is literally a modern invention, coinciding with the development of capitalism and the initial extraction from this continent. Like, that's, I'm sorry, if you don't have to believe it, doesn't make it any less real or true. Sorry. Studying history is what opened my eyes from the bigotry and the bullshit that I'd been raised with. And I would just encourage anyone to take a trip down memory lane, read a little bit of history, get a sense of what this country has done to people, what this country's been about, how this country has not lived up to the ideals that we put on paper, what this country has done to other countries and people around the world, because I was raised to believe that so many people hated us because of our freedom. Yeah. I was raised, that's what it was about. It was about our freedom. Not the bombs we dropped on their children. Right. Not the governments we overthrew, not the civil wars we fostered. Give me a freaking break.
Yeah. You two want to cherry pick. I mean, it's just so silly. You two want to cherry pick. We're talking about the country that we live in, that we were raised by, and whose history our government is deciding on how to teach. Right? I mean, you're not going to talk about the fucking Barbary pirates in Alabama state history. I mean, you're going to talk about slavery, the Civil War, sharecropping, tenant farming, Reconstruction, the Redeemers. That's what you're going to talk about. That's the question. Mark, if you want to play Nazi in the chat, then do it with 10 toes down and do it with your chest. This other stuff is like, or not, neo-Confederate. If you want to play neo-Confederate, do it with your chest. Tell us that you think sharecropping was basically fine. Slavery was basically fine. The fall of Reconstruction was basically fine. Jim Crow, basically fine. And if you don't think that, then why are you arguing with us? If you don't believe that sharecropping, Jim Crow, the fall of Reconstruction was basically fine, then why are you chirping at us in our comment in the chat about the Barbary pirates or the 700s campaign by the Moors?
It's all good, bro, because we weren't alive back then. So how would we know?
Right. It's just, okay. Moving on to the jobs report.
We are live for this.
We are.
For now, we're here for this one. The jobs report.
The jobs report. Mark did ask us about the jobs report, and it's not good. It is really, really not good. There's a guy that I follow on Twitter about the jobs report, or for like economy stuff. His name is Mike Conskall. He's a senior director of policy and research at the Economic Securities Project, former National Economic Council, NEC. And the February 2026 jobs report had 92,000 job losses. I mean, that's the headline number. But below that, The prior 2 months were revised down by 71,000. Unemployment went up to 4.4%. And one of the most critical things is that the piece of the economy, or one of the pieces of the economy that has been holding the rest of it up, is healthcare. You know, I mean, over the last, since Liberation Day, the healthcare sector has accounted for 187% of private job growth. In February, for the first time, those jobs went negative. And so that obviously really, really changes the dynamic. Blue-collar jobs continued to decrease. We lost 35,000 blue-collar jobs in February. Mike says that's more or less on par for each month since Liberation Day. Each month since Liberation Day, we've lost 35,000 blue-collar jobs. Conskall says for all the drama and tariff taxes, blue-collar jobs are roughly 500,000 jobs below the trend line from 2023 to 2024. Really, really not good if you care about blue-collar jobs. The average week unemployed is now back to levels not seen since early 2022, well above 2019 levels. Really, really not good. Yeah, so, I don't have just a whole lot to say about it other than it's scary, and if you're looking for a job in this environment, you should be concerned.
Yeah. I'll mention a couple things that the AFL-CIO put out in reaction to this. They talked about, of course, the fact that everything's too expensive for folks. I mean, I think everybody's facing the affordability crisis, and not everyone. The billionaires aren't, but most of us, we are. And the big ugly bill's coming home to roost. There's going to be more cuts that we haven't even felt the impacts of yet. The only growing area, like you said, has been healthcare, and those jobs they're falling apart, and that's disproportionately affecting women workers, especially women of color. So it's pretty bleak. I mean, and I know a lot of people thought that, the economy was going to turn around. We were going to have more jobs. But, we've seen that healthcare has been kind of propping things up. And now you've got cuts to Medicaid, cuts to the healthcare subsidies, right? So hundreds of thousands of people across the country losing their healthcare. And so that's not good. It's really, really not good. You've got people losing their benefits in terms of not just healthcare, but food assistance, energy assistance, other benefits like that. The unemployment rate for Black women has risen towards 7.1%, while the rate for Black men stands at around 7%. So these figures underscore the persistence of racial inequalities in the labor market and the need for public policy to address them. Because, it's just concerning, and I think with the war, that's going to have even more of an impact because we've seen the oil market's gone crazy. We have seen the way that's impacting trade internationally, energy prices, and so not looking great for the economic outlook, really.
Let's get to the title segment. We did an interview a couple of weeks ago with workers for Theorist Media, which is now owned by Lunar X. Theorist Media is the company that runs all of the channels that MatPat started, Matthew Patrick. So the game theorists, the film theorists, the food theorists, the style theorists. I think there's one. I think they said there were 7 channels or something. It's a lot. And they are forming a union at their company because they don't like, in part because they don't like the direction that the new management is taking the company, that there are some concerns with the way that new policies are being rolled out. But also just generally, they want to have a little bit more control and stability working for the company that they have developed and built, with MatPat from the ground up. And, that at the point that they're at, running a YouTube media company that is getting millions and millions of views every month, makes millions of dollars a year, that's that's a real job. It takes real work and it takes real professionals to be able to do it in a consistent way. And so, they wanted to have the respect of the real work that they're doing, and they wanted to have some level of control, some standardization of what they're doing. And so they decided to form a union with the Writers Guild of America West and the Motion Picture Editors Guild, a local of IATSE. And they came out with this, they came out with their union in November. They requested voluntary recognition from the company. So far, they have not gotten voluntary recognition yet. They're still pushing for it. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to come on the program a couple of weeks ago as a part of their campaign to kind of increase pressure on Theorist Media. And I want to say, and I want to start off this by the overwhelming, the majority of comments and the overwhelming reaction to the interview itself was positive. And so I just want to highlight this with one user said, Americans are so brainwashed they legit think unions ruin companies. That received 71 upvotes. All workers deserve to unionize and have a say in how things are run. That received 31 upvotes. The overall like to dislike ratio on the video was super, super positive. So the vast majority of people who actually watched it and engaged in any way were like, cool. The people who produce the content that I enjoy watching should get paid well. Especially if the work that they're doing is making enough money to pay them well, then they should for sure be paid well. They should have some stability. They should have a voice on the job. That's the overwhelming sentiment. But there were a few people who were chirping in our comments, unhappy about these workers deciding to unionize. And so I wanted to highlight them and kind of respond to these arguments, because there's not very much that's unique when you get anti-union arguments. They're basically kind of all very, very similar. We've heard them before, so we figured that we would respond to them and maybe do a little bit of education in this segment, highlighting, using this issue as a hook to do broader union education, because a lot of these anti-union arguments are pretty similar, and workers in many industries are going to hear some of these same arguments. So one user just said, ew. Not really an argument, so don't have anything to say about that. Here's one. The algorithm doesn't care if you're unionized. This will further continue decline of the channel. Don't support them on this. So this is just kind of generally, unions ruin companies. Unions make companies less efficient, right? And that is just not true. That's just not true. I mean, the heyday of American manufacturing, when people talk about, they don't make things like they used to, the like they used to that people are referencing is usually something like the 50s, 60s, and 70s. The quality of American manufacturing really did not start declining, I don't think, in most people's view until, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s. In the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the union density of American manufacturing was over 30%, almost 40%, right? More than 1 in 3 manufacturing workers, more than 1 in 3 manufacturing jobs in the United States were unionized. That is the highest union density rate that we've ever had. And that's when the stuff was the best, right? And so that's just not true. And you know, I mean, conceptually, there's no reason why a union should make the production be lower quality. And actually, Hollywood, which has been producing, some good and some not good stuff for like 100 years, has been basically 100% unionized since the 30s, right? So, I mean, has Hollywood not had any good movies since the 30s? Have they not produced any good TV shows since the 30s? I mean, this is a new medium, and so the workers have not organized yet. But why would YouTube be different than any other industry where workers organized, demanded a voice on the job, demanded respect, demanded dignity, a little bit better pay, and continued to succeed? Why would YouTube be any different? You're right that the algorithm doesn't care if you're unionized, and that's why whether they're union or not is not really going to be the factor in whether or not the channel and the company succeeds. It's going to be the product that they put out. And actually, I think particularly for creative work, the product that you put out can be better if you have a stable job, if you're more secure, if you have enough money to be able to do your job, right, and live comfortably. Then I think that's actually going to make it easier for you for your creative juices to get flowing and be able to do the job well. Another one says, hopefully they get fired and replaced with AI. That's just a guy. That's pretty mean, right? Like discontent and it is, but yeah, firing people is it sucks, right? Like to get fired and to lose your job, especially in this economy, as we just mentioned. So I know it's just a silly, petty comment, but I think we should be cautious when we call for people to get fired. Like people talk about firing football coaches a lot or things like that, and like that's fine, that's different, right. But we're talking about people who make just like the median salary. Yeah, but like regular working folks, like like I remember working in the fast food industry or in restaurants, and every now and then you'd get one of those crazy customers who would make it their mission to try to like get someone in trouble at the restaurant or try to get someone fired. It's like, really, like, how's that going to help anything besides, putting this person on the street? So anyway, don't like it. Yeah, don't like it. YouTube here's another one. YouTube is a very fragile industry. So I don't currently think that individual YouTubers should unionize. Unions are great, but the major downside and upside is that it's very hard to fire someone. It's a downside because this person might be absolutely terrible at their jobs and drag the whole company down. Now should most of the big, and so that is, it's just a general thing. That's what they tell people in basically every union campaign ever. The union is gonna protect bad employees, and that is just not true. It's just not true. Because the only mechanism that the union has to protect somebody's job is the contract, right? And actually, the contract and the support of their members. Let's talk about the contract. What is a contract? I feel like people don't kind of think these things through 2 or 3 steps down the road. A contract is an agreement between 2 parties. Who are the 2 parties in a union contract? It's the union, the workers, and the company. What kind of company is going to agree to give away their ability to discipline or fire an unproductive employee? I'll tell you the answer. The answer is no company. And if you want another, I can do you one better. What group of workers is going to want to take that power completely away from management and not allow that to be done? I'll tell you the answer. The answer is basically no group of workers. The company has no incentive to agree to a contract that does not allow for bad performers to be fired. And the workers don't have that incentive either because they don't want to be dragged down by poor performers. They don't want to be dragged down by poor performers and have to pick up their slack, right? So neither of the two parties are incentivized to allow poor performers to continuously drag down the company and to continuously force their coworkers to pick up the slack for them. What the workers are incentivized to demand in a contract is progressive discipline and just cause, which just means that your first offense, unless it's super crazy, like you kill somebody on the job or something, or you make a super negligent mistake that costs the company 25% of their operating revenue for the year. Huge mistakes. There are always provisions in contracts for huge mistakes that can immediately lead to termination. But generally speaking, progressive discipline just means that your first mistake cannot lead to you being fired or you being suspended without pay. You've got to get like a written warning first. The first time that you're late, or the first time that you miss a deadline, or the first time that you make a mistake in a project, you can't fire me for that. And also just cause, which just means that the discipline actually has to have a truth behind it. Like there actually has to be some sort of performance problem with me for you to give me discipline. You can't just give me discipline because you don't like my face, right? And that's all that union contracts have with respect to discipline. And so then I'll ask the question, why is it that unions get a reputation for protecting poor performers? The reason that the primary reason they get that reputation is because of huge boss propaganda and investments in advertising from bosses who do not like being forced to do their job and being forced to do their job well. They like to be able to kind of walk through the world with impunity and not have to answer to anybody and be able to make whatever decision they want to make without any repercussions or anything at all. They just want to be able to do whatever they want to do. And so they put a lot of money behind propaganda that says unions protect poor performers. Here's another one. Sometimes unions do end up protecting poor performers because of the poor performative management. What I mean by that is that, let's say you've got a poor performer, a guy that actually is poor performing. He is not doing good at his job. He's bringing down the crew. Other people are having to pick up his slack, and management wants to do something about it. Well, they have to follow the procedures in the contract. They have to first say, give him a written warning, and then, or a verbal warning, and then a written warning, and then, something. You got to take the 1, 2, 3, 4 steps to getting to termination. And they have to do all of that with the appropriate justification and supporting evidence. And a lot of times, they just don't want to do it. And so they just skip a bunch of steps. They do a shoddy job. And so the union is then forced to protect this worker who, by all accounts, does need to be fired, but who management is not following the proper protocol to get that done. Because if the union does not do that and does not enforce the contract on behalf of a worker who maybe you would say doesn't deserve it, then those contract provisions can be disregarded in the future on behalf of a worker who does need them and who does deserve the protections. It's literally just like criminal law, right? If a prosecutor is not able to array the proper evidence, they will not be able to get a conviction even if the defendant actually did the crime. And so, sometimes people who did the crime get off because a prosecutor was lazy or didn't do their job or didn't have enough evidence or something like that. And I'm not saying that the exact same level of evidence needs to be hit to discipline somebody on their job. But you should have to go through a process and actually justify it and prove with evidence that somebody actually did not do their job correctly. Because when you fire somebody, that can end up pushing somebody into destitution, into homelessness, into, further mental health declines, and actually be, physically unhealthy for them, right? So you should have to do your homework and actually do a good job on that. And so that's the whole thing. And sometimes bosses are lazy, frankly. And sometimes they just don't want to do the training. And they don't want to follow the protocol. They just want to be able to do whatever they want to do, move through the world without any constraints. And So
yeah, I experienced that myself, representing educators. And, of course, teacher tenure is one of those perennial punching bags on the right wing. They love to say teacher tenure. That's the problem with the schools today. You can't get rid of those terrible teachers because the union's protecting them. And, in my case, did I represent some educators who were less than stellar? Yes, I did. I also represented educators who did nothing wrong and were being unfairly targeted. I also represented educators who were being discriminated against. I represented employees who were made an honest mistake, right? Didn't mean to do anything wrong, made an honest mistake, and then we're getting railroaded. It varied, but the common denominator there was if there was an employee who was pretty objectively bad for whatever reason, yet they remained an employee, it was because their supervisor was as bad or worse, right? Mm-hmm. Because they, as you said, were too lazy to do what they were supposed to do, right? The union's job is to represent the rights of the members and the due process of those members. Management's job is to, deal with discipline, right? So if they mess it up, that's on them. But I think it's a silly thing because, it's easy to say that if you've never been the one called into the office.
Yeah.
When you are the one who's been called into the office, most people don't think that's fair, right? I had very few members who ever came out and said, yeah, I'm guilty as hell. I did all those things they said I did.
Right.
Very rarely would that ever happen, right? And so the union rep would have to try to sort through, well, what's really true, what's really not, who's stories add up, who's don't. But bottom line, it was to advocate for their rights. And, it was up to management to prove they did something wrong. And that's where a lot of it falls apart. But, I think it's not unreasonable to want someone to defend you if you are caught up in trouble.
Yeah.
It's just not unreasonable to expect that. It's fair. In teaching, the reason tenure developed, particularly in education, was because it was very routine before there was tenure, before there was a form of due process, to just have political firings, right? New school board, new superintendent gets elected, just get rid of all the old folks, bring in your own people. Or little Johnny gets a B instead of an A, and little Johnny's parents happen to, give to the school board, right? Mm-hmm. Things like that. So I do think that was an interesting comment, though, about the broader ecosystem.
Yeah.
I thought there was some nuance there to it that, is there opportunity for some kind of more collaboration and cooperation among the businesses within the YouTube ecosystem?
Yeah.
To collaborate and therefore maybe negotiate in some collective way towards YouTube.
Yeah,
I mean, that's interesting, and I think there could be something to that.
And that is how unions were able to establish such dominance in Hollywood, right? It wasn't workers at one studio in Hollywood unionizing and then being satisfied with that. They unionized all the studios in Hollywood, and now every few years, all of the unions and all of the Hollywood producers get together, they negotiate all of the contracts together. And so ultimately, the commenter was right. They did talk about some of that and how that, that really is really the thing that's going to be able to change YouTube in a more worker-friendly direction kind of generally, but that is not to say that workers at individual channels should not unionize in the meantime. We got a couple of callers on the line. I want to get to them. I'm going to respond to one more of these comments, and then we'll get to the calls. So this person says, sweet, so they can negotiate a 10% raise and give 8% to their union. And I have never
seen that.
Never seen union dues.
I think I've paid dues to 5 unions in my life, and
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that.
A normal amount of union dues is like 1%, 2% is kind of high, and that is, that's the normal. So union dues are never going to be 8% of your paycheck. And frankly, your raises are probably going to be higher than 10%, right? I mean, we just talked about earlier in the show, shipbuilders in Mississippi got a 50% pay increase over the next 5 years, an 18% pay increase immediately. I mean, you talk about an 18% pay increase, even 8% going to the union still would be good. And even in the scenario that they paint, which is like a very pessimistic scenario, you get a 10% raise and then you pay 8% in dues. Well, I mean, you're still coming out 2% ahead. Like 8% in dues is kind of crazy, but you're still taking home 2% more than you were before. Wouldn't you, even in that scenario, wouldn't you want a union? If you knew for a fact that's what was going to happen, you would vote no in a union election? To make 2% less, even that just, it's not as good as it should be, but it's not that bad, right? So, union dues, not that much, and they're important to be able to fund the operations of the union. You got to be able to hire lawyers. You got to be able to send stewards to trainings. You got to be able to do all sorts of stuff that dues are important. You got to be able to pay for office space, et cetera, right? So you gotta pay your dues. Just like if you go to church, you gotta donate, or you should, if you're gonna go to church, you're gonna be in a union workplace. You're gonna take advantage of all of these things. You gotta participate, physically and in the activity of the union as well as monetarily.
Right. And someone put in our YouTube chat, which I really appreciate, that there's also more than just pay increase on the potential list of demands. And I think that's huge because a lot of times we boil these conversations down to wages, maybe wages and benefits.
Right.
But a lot of times, like we think about the conversation we had with Jeremy this morning, right? The earbuds.
Yeah.
Something that seems small, but makes a huge difference in a worker's day-to-day life. And a lot of times when I've talked to workers over the years, the issues that surface up, often wages aren't the first thing that come up. I mean, sometimes it is, and everyone wants more money, but a lot of times it's basic issues of respect and dignity in the way people are treated, the way people are talked to. Just the basic rights you have day to day. That's often what comes up. Safety is huge. You are less likely to die on the job or to lose a limb on the job if you have a union in your workplace. Right. That's a fact.
Yeah. Yeah. So absolutely. Just the pay is not, not even generally the primary thing. So. All right, 844-899-TVLR is the phone number, 844-899-8857. We've got a couple of callers on the line. Let's go ahead and bring the first one on. They're calling from a 304 area code. 304 area code. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Jacob, it's Jared with Mesa.
Jared,
can you hear me?
Appreciate you giving us a call. Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, wonderful. So I am with IFPT Local 27, the Marshall Engineers and Scientists Association. I'm calling in to share some news and ask people to help out a little bit because the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, which is kind of like the HR agency for the entire federal government, has issued a couple of proposed rules that people can comment on, and we would really appreciate it if people would take the time to do that. So for those of you who don't know, every time there's a new federal regulation that gets issued, it has to be published publicly in the Federal Register first, and then there's a 30-day comment period. And I'd like to just talk through real quickly the two that have come to our attention, and explain why these are important and why it's really important, especially here in the Huntsville, North Alabama area, that people take the time to go in and comment on these.
Yeah.
So the first one is that OPM is proposing all probationary and RIF appeals would have to be filed through OPM rather than the Merit System Protection Board. So the reason why this is important is because federal labor law, which is the Civil Service Reform Act of '78, established both OPM and the Merit Systems Protection Board back then and gave them different purposes. The Merit System Protection Board is who you appeal to as a federal employee if you've been terminated for the wrong reasons, right? If as you were talking earlier, if someone's just bad at their job and they've been walked through the process and the I's have been dotted and the T's and get crossed and they still think something was wrong, they can appeal to the Merit Systems Protection Board over that.
Right.
OPM, that's just HR. That's the next level up of HR. Right. What they're proposing, and basically they're proposing it because the MSPB hasn't had a quorum in a while and the Senate is slow to approve any nominees to the Merit System Protection Board. They're saying, we'll just in-house that under us. So if you were a probationary employee and you thought you were doing well, and then just suddenly out of nowhere, your boss says, actually, you weren't good enough. We don't think you're suitable for the federal service. We're going to let you go, right? Which is a real concern, especially nowadays. Ordinarily, if you have a cause that says this was for other than performance reasons, MSPB is who you would take that to, right? OPM is now saying, actually, that's better handled by us. And then they're also saying if you were riffed, right, if you were part of a layoff and you think you were inappropriately assigned to be laid off, Merit System Protection Board is who you should appeal that to. Well, OPM is proposing they in-house all of this. And that's a big problem, right? Because it's basically saying you don't have an independent chain of authority to make this appeal to anymore, right? Because Merit System Protection Board, they are all staffed by career administrative judges, right? That is staffed by people whose job it is to be fair arbitrators in these decisions, or fair judges in these decisions who are versed in administrative labor law. OPM, that's not their job, and that's not what they're trained for either. So that's a big concern for us, especially as our administrator, Jared Isaacman, has finally worked to get hiring authority with OPM, and he's supposed to be helping the agency bring in 1,000 or more people over the course of the rest of this year, which is a really positive development in our opinion, because there's so much work to be done. But this would really undermine a lot of that. And it's also coupled with the fact that the federal government is currently under a ruling which stems from an executive order that says 4 people have to leave before 1 person can be hired in. Right? So this just creates a negative feedback loop that there's no independent authority you can appeal to, really. So that's why I want to point that out. And so if people want to, they can go to regulations.gov and they can find this. And I've sent the information to you guys, so you can pass this along too. It's got an RIN, a regulation identification number of 3206-A097. And people can go in and leave a comment about why this is a bad idea and how this will actually hurt our ability to serve the taxpayers better and hurt our ability to have boots on the moon no later than 2028. And then the next one I'd like to bring up, because I don't want to take too much of your time, OPM is also proposing removing prohibitions on forced performance distributions, right? So the civil service every year, you get your performance rating at the end of the performance year, and you have at least one midterm rating where you get an opportunity to get feedback from your supervisor about what you could do better or what you're already doing pretty well. Right now, the merit system, which is federal law, Title V, United States Code, Section 2301, says your performance has to be rated based on your actual performance versus your performance plan and the expectations of your position, right? That's supposed to be as close to an objective rating of your actual performance versus a written performance plan as possible. And that's one of the reasons why for a long time, and it's a CFR, I forget the CFR off the top of my head, mandatory distributions, right? Like saying only 10% of people can get the top rating, only 20% of people can get the next to top rating. Those have been banned because they remove that objectivity of saying you have to, your performance needs to be compared against what your actual performance plan is.
Right.
And they're proposing getting rid of that protection. And they've explicitly pulled up things saying that people should already go ahead and limit the top, like they speak positively of saying only 5% of the civil service can earn or be given, rather, right? Because they're not earning it. It's what they're being given, a top performance rating. And that's an issue because it undermines merit systems protections.
Right.
So that means you don't have that incentive to do the best that you can anymore because you understand there's going to be some level of arbitrary nature that doesn't matter how good you actually do at the job. If everyone's doing well, you're still going to get only 5% of them. It's essentially going to be a lottery, right? In which case you don't have that incentive to be good at your job anymore. And in that one, they also explicitly ban filing grievances over performance ratings, which is also a major concern because now it just says there's no recourse, right? Because you can appeal, you can request reconsideration of your performance rating if you think your supervisor just got it wrong, and you are required to provide, a justification for why you think you do have to prove your claim, right? And in previous years, we've helped people prove their claims. We've successfully helped people say, I did it. My performance didn't significantly change this year. And my boss said that because they had to issue, a written warning about something I did by accident, that they feel they can't give me the rating I ordinarily would have earned. And so we were able to say, hey, that's a violation. You can't consider that. If you had to discipline somebody, if you had to write somebody a letter saying they did something wrong, you can't use that in the performance rating because that's a separate thing, right? And that makes people feel respected, and that means they can keep focusing on doing the best job they can. This would remove that protection. This would remove that level of dignity and respect for being a civil servant. And it also just opens it up to some really arbitrary decisions on how people get ranked because, if your agency adopts hey, 10% of the workforce has to be put on a mandatory performance improvement plan every year kind of policy, well, then that choice of, if everyone's a high earner, who's going to be in that 10%? Right. If everyone's a hard worker, if everyone does, who's going to be in that 10% that has to be put on a performance improvement plan? Right. You see how that undermines any incentive to be actually good at your job?
Well, and how do you
that's why I want to bring that out.
Yeah, I mean, how do you even construct the performance improvement plan in the hypothetical scenario where you have 10 people in the unit and all 10 are doing their jobs? They are, and that's not hard to imagine that you have it, I mean, there are units of 4, 5, 10, 20 all across the government. There are no doubt hundreds of these units where everybody in the unit is doing their job. How do you even construct a performance improvement plan for a worker that is meeting all of their standards? It's just BS.
I mean, the best faith effort I could say is you recommend them take a training and you authorize them to spend the time taking that training, but yeah, you get right to the meat of it. Like if everyone in the work unit is doing their best, is doing a good job, then there's no fair and as objective as possible way to make a fair determination about, think it just doesn't make sense if you want, to provide the best performance in the civil servants and the best return on taxpayer dollar to institute something like this. Specific ruling doesn't say that, but it does open the door to it.
Right.
And it also removes any, fair chance of, if your boss just has it out for you, then it gives you an arbitrarily low rating. You can make the appeal, but right now it just goes to your immediate supervisor. And if they bar grievances over it, then that's where it stops. You don't have any effective recourse. And that opens it up to you getting railroaded out for arbitrary reasons.
Right.
And the RIN, the regulation number for that, again, people can go to regulate, https://www.regulations.gov and they can put in the regulation identification number, the RIN 3206-AP06, and they can write in and leave a comment, and there's a box there to be anonymous if you want to. And if you're a civil servant, you put in that you're doing it on your personal time. This does not help us do our jobs any better. This does not help us improve the service to the other taxpayers, right? Because we're taxpayers too. And it certainly doesn't help us at Marshall in delivering that out-of-the-world performance that we need to have boots on the moon in 28.
Right. Jared, president of the Rocket Scientists Union here in Huntsville. Appreciate you calling in. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacob.
Yep. We got another caller on the line. If you want to get where he was, the phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. This caller's from a 267 area code. 267 area code. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, my brothers. This is Infinite Content calling from Philly.
Hey, good to hear from you.
Good to hear from you. What's on your mind?
Man, it's so much on my mind. I can't even start. But let me dovetail into what the previous caller was talking about, because you have 10 electricians and pipe fitters on a job, and they're assembling everything to or above government specs, and then they get put on a performance improvement plan. How can you prove that they weren't doing their job properly?
Right.
Let's think about it. Or better yet, we have an attorney working at Justice or something like that who's been working on a case for a year and a half. How can you accurately define if they were actually doing their job properly? They've been working a court case for 18 months over a 12-month span.
Yeah, and I think one of my concerns is that the more arbitrary you make this stuff, the more union activists are going to get targeted too.
Yep.
Oh, trust me. Because this current administration and this current executive branch absolutely abhors labor and unions and actually paying their workers. I could get in. If I start getting into it, we'll be on here until Easter. But I'm not going to. We don't have that time. But first off, how have you all been? I'm sorry, I forgot my manners. How have you two been?
We're doing good. Yeah, doing pretty well. It's a weird time in this country and a weird time in history. I think we're living through, but I think we're trying to hold on and spread the good word of solidarity.
And like we need solidarity across the board. I mean, militarily, civically, economically, because I just saw the gas prices in Philly spike like about 70 cents in the past 2 weeks. Have you all seen these?
Oh yeah,
maybe down in I'm like
yeah,
that. I'm like,
it's been going
and
up.
you know what?
Crazy,
gas prices
like
go up
every day.
You know what else is going to go up? There you go. It's like everything is going up, and and I'm like, this is an excellent tactical strategy, but we're in an unwinnable battle in an unwinnable war right now. I'll leave that at that.
Yeah, I think you're right. We just need more solidarity. Is ultimately what can save us. It's what's made things better in this country before, right? You know, people stuck together. That's to the extent that we still have civil rights and women's rights and labor rights. It's because everyday people came together, made those rights, right? We banded together around our common interest, and we were able to make progress. We were able to win the New Deal. We were able to win civil rights and the Voting Rights Act, right? I was just in Selma last weekend.
What was LBJ's thing? The Greater Society? The Great Society, yeah.
and we can all look back and see some of those flaws or some of, the areas where we didn't go big enough or we didn't win enough. But the bottom line is we have made things better in this country, but they've been getting worse. And, it's going to be up to us as everyday people to get more folks involved, get more folks educated, and get organized and really put pressure on the powers that be, both in the economy and in politics.
Yep. Appreciate the call, man.
To quote what you all say, all wealth should go to labor. Labor needs to start prepping right now, particularly down in the South, because I don't know what this administration has against FEMA, but we need to start doing setting up individual aid for and stocking up supplies for when a bad storm comes through, because honestly I can't trust your state, and I can't trust the beds to come through for people and have them just out here suffering. And I'm saying this out of compassion for my fellow man.
Yeah.
Like people need to just go, like, maybe buy 2 cases of water a week just to have just in case. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right, and I think you're right to point to FEMA. I think because, that's something we have to deal with. It's a reality. We're going to have more extreme weather. We're going to have more natural disasters, and we're less equipped to deal with them now than we were. And it's going to be up to the community really to take care of each other. So, I appreciate your call. It was good to hear from you, and I hope you stay strong up there in Philly.
And I don't want to take up. I didn't want to take up too much of you all time. Y'all stay safe. Look out for each other, and we need to go ahead and start doing some aid things just to prep just in case. Let us know. I got some people that I know that are truckers and are on the road, and we can start getting water and some supplies just stocked up just in case.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, man.
Thanks.
Peace, brothers.
All right. Let's get to some videos of these Doge Bros. So, y'all know that we've been following these the Doge stuff. It was an unmitigated disaster, completely failed its own purported mission, totally unsuccessful, and hurt the United States significantly in the meantime. So last January, one of the things that happened was that Trump signed a bunch of executive orders ending research for grants related to DEI, gender ideology, environmental sustainability, etc. And so, Doge's team was tasked with implementing that executive order. And this is from an article. They said that by April 1st, the National Endowment for the Humanities had canceled over $100 million in grants and terminated 65% of its employees. In May, the American Council of Learned Societies, the American Historical Association, and the Modern Language Association, all representing grant recipients, filed a lawsuit seeking to reinstate funding. And so I wanted to play some of these clips that have come out from the deposition of the young men who were responsible for executing the cutting of these grants, because it is just crazy to see these guys in action. Let's play clip 1.
How do you interpret DEI? There was the EO explicitly laid out. The details, I don't remember it off the top of my head. It's okay. I'm asking for your understanding of it. Yeah, my understanding was exactly what was written in the EO. Okay, so can you... I don't remember what was in the EO. So right now, do you have an understanding of what DEI is? Yeah. Okay, so what's your understanding as you sit here today in this deposition? Well, it was exactly what was written in the EO. And so anytime that we would look at a grant through the lens of complying with an executive order. We would just refer back to the EO and assess if this grant had relation to it.
Okay, but I guess I'm stepping back from your methodology strictly in terminating the grants. Do you have an understanding as you sit here today of what DEI means?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your understanding of what it means?
Well, it is exactly what was written in the EO.
Okay, so why is a documentary about Holocaust survivors DEI?
Objection.
It's the gender-based story that's inherently discriminatory to focus on this specific group.
It's inherently discriminatory to focus on what specific group?
The gender-based, so females during the Holocaust.
And you believe that that's inherently discriminatory?
I'm just saying that's what it's focused on.
Sure.
But this is related to DEI.
Right. But you just used the term inherently discriminatory. What did you mean by that?
It's focusing on DEI principles, gender being one of them.
So a documentary that's about women would be DEI?
Objection.
Is that fair to say?
No.
Okay. So tell me why what I just said isn't DEI, but what you just said is DEI.
Objection.
It's a Jewish, specifically focused on Jewish cultures and amplifying the marginalized voices of the females in that culture. It's inherently related to DEI for those reasons.
Wow.
It is so gross thinking about how flippantly these people were just destroying people's lives. And, you know, asked about that specifically, you know, you were responsible for, you know, the termination of a lot of people, and that had a huge impact. You know, do you have any kind of feelings about that? Another one of these Doge Bros had this to say. Let's play clip 2.
You don't regret that people might have lost important income to support their lives?
Objection. No. I think it was more important to reduce the federal deficit from $2 trillion to close to zero.
Did you reduce the federal deficit?
No, we didn't.
Okay. All right. So it's more important to reduce the federal deficit than, you know, caring about the impact of my actions. And then the impact of my actions did not even have the effect of reducing the deficit at all. That's kind of nuts. That is kind of nuts. We've got one more of these clips that have been making the rounds we wanted to share with you. Let's play clip 3.
Do you have any history in, like, let's say, scholarly peer review?
No.
Okay. So, but this judgment call was made by you and your personal judgment combined with Justin's personal judgment to cancel grants based on DEI?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think it's inappropriate in any way that someone in their 20s with no experience with grants or federal government was making personal judgment calls about what grants to cancel?
Objection. No, I don't think it's inappropriate.
Okay. Why not?
Objection. I think a person can have enough judgment from reading books and being well informed outside of traditional experience to make judgment calls about obvious things like a grant that literally lists DEI in its description to know whether it violates an executive order.
I'm sorry. I'm saying books because you said books. What books would you have read that would have informed your opinion on what grants to cancel based on DEI or
there were no books.
I mean, just not taking seriously these huge positions of power at all, being totally flippant about the effect that you're having. And, you know, I mean, as a federal employee, it's just so, you know, and I talked last week about how, you know, the Labor Department is trying to, you know, is hiring people based on whether or not they support the president. You can go back and watch our segment about this from last week, but the reporting is out there. They're literally asking people in application questions, do you support the president? Is there anything that you disagree with the president about? We just had a caller who's in leadership of a federal union talk about how they're trying to change the rules to make to make discipline and stuff like that more arbitrary. There are so many ways that this administration is attacking the goal of a meritorious civil service, a civil service that is predicated not on partisan loyalty or your individual politics, but on whether or not you can do the individual job that you have. And we've got guys like this who just don't care about that. It's all partisan, and they're not even competent about it.
And isn't that what we're supposed to be mad about with DEI? That you're going to give people jobs who aren't qualified? But this joker, he's qualified to do this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's nuts.
We had a comment, so you think people should just sit around and get paid for doing nothing? Absolutely not. That's why I opposed Doge.
Yeah.
I guess they weren't doing nothing. They were hurting people, but they surely weren't competent or qualified to be in those positions. And no, I don't necessarily think people should just sit around and get paid for doing nothing. But, lots of people do. That's sort of the nature of our system, right? A lot of people are getting a lot of money without doing much of anything. And a lot of us are working really hard without getting a whole lot. That's the nature of America right now.
Yeah. So total unmitigated failures, completely inexperienced and incompetent, not able to do their jobs, totally failed, hurt a lot of people in the process. No doubt, not at the National Endowment for the Humanities, but, with the USAID stuff, no doubt, literally killed a bunch of children across the world. And just no second thought about it.
Yeah, and the gall to say that a documentary about women slaves during the Holocaust, that's DEI, that's offensive and discriminatory to have a documentary about that. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Bonkers. All right, so we got one more clip here that me and Adam might have a little bit of a debate about, because the clip is Bernie Sanders announcing his data center moratorium. And when I first read it, or when I first saw kind of the headline about it, I was immediately opposed to it because I thought the arguments were going to be more about utility bills increasing, more about pollution and environmental damage and stuff like that. And I'm just really not an environmentalist, kind of generally speaking. I think that we should take care of the environment, but that's not kind of my primary thing. And I also think that with respect to those concerns, which I share, to the extent that they do present themselves, my kind of approach is, or my thought process is like, we don't actually, really care, or at least I don't, that much about whether or not a data center goes up. But if it goes up, the people that do the job should be paid well. They should be union. There should be environmental protections, and any new energy infrastructure that needs to be built to service the data center, the developers should have to pay for that. And ideally those new energy generation equipment is either nuclear or some other form of clean energy. And then you're able to kind of change the energy distribution, and you can get some benefits from that. And so that's kind of what I anticipated the arguments to be about. And my thought process is just like, well, the kind of actual building of the data center is not the problem. It's some of the effects, and there are ways to mitigate the effects. And so why introduce a data center moratorium when theoretically the you just want to mitigate. Why not just go straight to what we really want, which is the mitigation of these effects? But to my surprise, the moratorium, at least for Bernie, seems much more premised around the kind of potential danger of AI rather than, you know, any particular incidental effects of data center construction. So, you know, so I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that before we play the clip, Adam? You know, regarding kind of the incidental, you know, effects of data center construction versus the risk of AI in the, you know, impetus for a data center moratorium.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would just say that the data centers are a hot topic, and it's something that comes up a lot in community. It's something I don't know enough about yet. I'm not an expert on data centers. Like, I've tried to do a little research. I've been on a couple webinars. I've gotten some information, but I'm not there yet. And so I can't make a fully, you know, qualified answer as to which ones are good, which ones are bad, are any good, are they all bad. I'm not sure that I'm there yet, but what I am really concerned about is when, you know, you have private developers who come in and put stuff in people's communities and they don't want them there. And there has been a lot of grassroots community pressure, and even here in Alabama, in some cases, around some of these projects. So I think I hear what you're saying, that there are ways to the extent that we need these. And I think that is an open question that I am not qualified to answer yet. Do we really need these data centers? Is it good, like, for humanity, for us to have these and continue building them? I think that is a question worthy of debate. But, you know, if we're going to assume that, yes, we have to have these, we're going to have these, then obviously I would like to see the neighborhoods and communities protected. We have a long history in this country of toxic dumping. We have a place in Louisiana called Cancer Alley, right? And if you're not familiar with it, look it up. Dumpin' and Dixie was a classic book that Dr. Robert Bullard put out, kind of founded the environmental justice movement, talking about the ways in which toxic chemicals and pollution has been really targeted at poor Black and brown communities in particular. Right. So all that kind of is in my head as we see these data centers develop and grow. And we know that energy prices are rising for everybody. Everybody's utility bills are going up. And so I think the science is still developing on to what extent the data centers are having an impact on those increasing energy prices. And I'm not the expert. But my instinct here is that, you know, if communities don't want something, I'm generally going to be on their side. That said, you know, if these projects are going to happen, to the extent that they are going to happen, I would rather, obviously, union folks be building them and, you know, get community safeguards and protections in place. Like you said, there absolutely should be regulations. And some states are doing this. Some states are putting regulations in place where if you're going to build a data center, any additional burden on the energy system, the data center has to compensate for that. They have to provide that. They have to pay that, etc. That seems reasonable, right? If you're going to come in and mess with our energy system, you should have to, you know, take care of that, right? Not put the burden on ordinary ratepayers. So those are just things that are, I think, on my mind. But I am curious to hear Bernie's position on this.
Yeah, let's go ahead and play clip 4.
Thanks very much for joining me. I will soon be introducing legislation calling for a moratorium on the construction of new data centers. Now, as a result, I've been called a Luddite, anti-innovation, anti-progress, pro-Chinese, among many other things. So, why am I doing that? Why am I calling for a moratorium on the construction of new data centers? Bottom line, we are at the beginning of the most profound technological revolution in world history. That's the truth. This is a revolution which will bring unimaginable changes to our world. This is a revolution which will impact our economy with massive job displacement. It will threaten our democratic institutions. It will impact our emotional well-being and what it even means to be a human being. It will impact how we educate and raise our kids. It will impact the nature of warfare, something we are seeing right now in Iran. Further, and frighteningly, some very knowledgeable people fear that what was once seen as science fiction could soon become a reality. And that is that super intelligent AI could become smarter than human beings, could become independent of human control, and pose an existential threat to the entire human race. In other words, human beings could actually lose control over the planet. And in the midst of all of that, all of this transformative change, what I have to tell you is that the United States Congress hasn't a clue, not a clue, as to how to respond to these revolutionary technologies and protect the American people. And it's not only not having a clue, they're out busy raising money all day long from AI and their super PACs, which is a whole other problem.
Yeah, so that argument that's much less difficult for me to get behind, I think, than the concern about the particular effects of a data center on the environment or in the community, because I mean,
he's thinking big picture.
Yeah, he's thinking big picture, because like the smaller stuff, you know, the effects on the environment, like it just seems to me very clear that there are ways to mitigate those impacts. And so rather than, if that's the concern, rather than saying moratorium, just do a law to make them do the things we want them to do. But, you know, the big picture stuff is, you know, that's definitely, I can see that a lot more. He goes on, the clip is like 10 minutes, and so, you know, if you want to go and watch the full thing, you can. But he goes on to basically the rest of the 10 minutes is him quoting big leaders in AI about how dangerous the technology that they're developing is, how dangerous it could be. Elon Musk in particular, I think, is the one that said this, that this technology is much more dangerous than a nuclear weapon, and yet there are no regulations. That's kind of crazy. And so, you know, so I can, it's much easier for me to get on board with that argument, I think. It's really, really, you know, it's definitely concerning, the rate at which this technology is developing and the lack of oversight that we have over these things. And unfortunately, you know, the role that our government is playing right now is an accelerating role rather than a regulatory or decelerating role. They just kicked out the Anthropic, the maker of Claude, because they refused to allow the government to use their technology to fully autonomously kill people. They did not feel like their technology was ready for that, and they did not want it to be ultimately on their shoulders to, you know, for Claude, this AI thing, to, from top to bottom, decide to and then execute a person. And for that reason, the government killed their contract with this company. And not only did they kill their contract with this company, they are trying to label this company a supply chain risk, which, if that goes through, that is going to mean not only can no federal entity use this company, that means no federal contractors can use this company. And so that's going to be a huge fiscal blow to this company, and is really going to do a lot to push the AI industry towards just
militarism.
Yeah. Towards militarism,
and subservience,
no holds barred subservience to the government, and like just completely no holds barred. And, you know, for a technology that is, according to its creators, much more dangerous than nuclear weapons, that is a scary world to live in. So, you know, I mean, that argument is much more appealing to me than the environmental argument around data centers. So.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, and I was already, favoring a moratorium anyway because of the other concerns, just because I think this needs federal regulation.
Yeah.
I don't think you can just leave it up to every little state, because that's pretty much what we're doing, and it's not enough. I think there needs to be federal regulation around this. And so I like the idea of a moratorium of let's just put pause on everything until we can figure out what the hell's going on here, how we can best do this, how we can actually protect workers and neighborhoods and the environment. I know it's a complicated issue because building trades union members, those brothers want to build these things so they can have good jobs. I understand that. And if they're going to be built, well, damn it, I want, IBEW and SMART and all of our blue collar brothers to build those. But, we do have to be realistic and recognize that there are some downsides. And we also, I think have to think of it big picture. And I appreciate Bernie bringing that up because we've already seen a huge amount of jobs have been automated or could be automated. And it's going to just continue to grow day by day. So I think, putting a pause on things while we formulate other, not just regulations on data centers and AI, but look at the economic future, period. Like how many jobs that we have today are no longer going to be needed 5-10 years from now? And people always say, oh, well, yeah, robots replace some jobs, but then there's new jobs that come along, right, to fix the robots and take care of the robots and all that. Well, how many? How many jobs? I'm a big fan of the federal job guarantee. I think that is a policy that more politicians should talk about. It was something that Dr. King talked about. It was something that the civil rights and labor rights movements of the past talked about. If you're saying that we need a job to, provide for ourselves, we should provide good jobs, and we should have a federal job guarantee, and we should find a way to, and that would be a way to address automation and AI as industries change, as technology changes, shifting people into different industries, retraining people, giving people opportunities to get into new careers. I think that's going to be really important in the future because what scares me about AI and robots is not the technology. It's who owns the technology, who controls the technology, and the fact that, we as working people have very little input or control over what's happening to us. And I don't want to see a future where the vast majority of us are just really no longer needed. Right now, the best thing we have going for us is that the capitalists do need us, right? They need our labor and they need our consumption. But, I fear, we could reach a point in our economy where that's less and less the case, and we have less and less leverage as everyday people. So I think we've got to get a handle on it. I appreciate Bernie's leadership on that. I understand he's going to take a lot of criticism for it, but I think it's the right thing to do right now.
844-899-TVLR is the phone number. You can give us a call and leave us a voicemail at any time. You can also leave us a written comment at tvlr.fm/contact. We've got a bunch of cool merch for sale at tvlr.fm/store, so check that out. And if you want to support the program, then you can do that at tvlr.fm/donate. We would really appreciate it if you did. We are on Means TV. You can subscribe to Means TV and get a discount with our discount code, TVLR. It's really good. They got a bunch of cool stuff there. So check that out. And find us on Means TV. This will be posted up there tomorrow or on Monday. And I think that's going to be it for us this week. Stay tuned. We got a really great, exciting episode planned for y'all next week, and we'll see you then.